and online.
This is GB News,
Britain's news channel.
Hello, good afternoon and welcome to GB News on TV, online and on digital radio. I'm Nana Akua. And for the next few hours, me and my panel will be taking on some of those big topics hitting the headlines right now. This show is all about opinion. It's mine, it's theirs, and of course it's yours. We'll be debating, discussing, and at times we will disagree, but no one will be cancelled. So joining me in the next hour, broadcaster and columnist Lizzie Cundy, and also former advisor to Jeremy Corbyn, James Schneider. In a few moments, I'll be mucking the week with comedian John Martin, and also coming up, we'll be live in Putney for the annual Oxford-Cambridge boat race. And there's been a new breakthrough in the fight against breast cancer. I'll discuss that with Dr. René Hundekamp, I think I got that right, plus former Labour Party advisor Matthew Lala is in the political spotlight this week. But before we get started, let's get your latest news with Sophia Wensler.
Thanks, Nana. Good afternoon. It's 3:01. I'm Sophia Wensler in the GB newsroom. Your top story this hour: the nationalities of migrants who commit crimes could be posted on a league table, with ministers saying it would give the government more power to tighten immigration laws. A group of Tory MPs wants to see statistics on every offender convicted in England and Wales published annually. They say the rules will help the Home Office impose stricter visa and deportation policies for certain countries. Former Immigration Minister Robert Jenrick is behind the plan. Speaking exclusively to GB News, he said the public wants to know how arrivals to the UK are impacting the country.
I want the most honest and transparent debate about immigration, legal or illegal, that we can possibly have. And it is wrong that the government or other agencies hide statistics. I have laid an amendment to the upcoming criminal justice bill, which tackles one of these issues, and it says that the government must publish statistics on crimes and sentences by country of origin and by visa and asylum status. I think that the public want to know who's coming into our country and what the economic, the fiscal and the societal impact of immigration is.
Now, the interim DUP leader, Gavin Robinson, has told colleagues the party is not about any one individual and says it exists to build a better and stronger Northern Ireland. It follows the shock resignation of Sir Geoffrey Donaldson. He's been charged with historical sex offences. The PSNI has since warned against speculation on social media, which may lead to the identification of victims. It's understood Sir Geoffrey's told his party's officers he will strenuously contest the allegations against him. Counter-terrorism police are investigating the stabbing of an exiled Iranian journalist in southwest London. Pariah Zarati, who was targeted outside his home in Wimbledon, is said to be in a stable condition after suffering an injury to his leg. London-based TV channel Iran International says the attack follows Tehran's plot to kill two of its presenters in 2022. It's calling for stronger action against the regime. Police say they're keeping an open mind regarding a motive. And in other news, two security sources have accused Israel of striking a car carrying UN observers in southern Lebanon. The UN peacekeeping mission says 4 people were injured. The Israeli military has denied any involvement. Meanwhile, further aid airdrops have been carried out over Gaza. The US military says it's conducted 18 airdrop missions this month. Yesterday, the UK dropped more than 10 tons of aid, including rice, flour, tinned goods and water to help civilians. In the Netherlands, a hostage situation at a nightclub has ended peacefully. Police arrested a man who was wearing a balaclava after he walked out of the venue. Witnesses say he came out with his hands in the air. Several people had been held in the club near the town of Ede. Authorities confirmed they've all been released. Household budgets are about to be hit with bigger, higher bills. A range of services and products, including broadband mobiles, the TV licence and stamps are going up from Monday. The average annual council tax bill is also increasing by £106, and water sewerage charges in England and Wales are rising by £27 a year. It's not all bad news, though. National insurance is going down, along with energy bills falling to their lowest level in 2 years. And classic Magnum ice creams are being recalled over fears they may contain metal. Manufacturer Unilever says the precautionary measure follows internal safety checks. Products sold in packs of 3 are being recalled, with the warning linked to 5 batches with a best before date of the 25th of November. The company has apologised and says no other Magnum products are affected. And for the latest stories, sign up to GB News Alerts by scanning the QR code on your screen or go to gbnews.com/alerts. Now it's back to Nana.
Good afternoon. This is GB News. I'm Nana Akua. Welcome on board. It's just gone 5 minutes after 3 o'clock, and it's time to mock the week. And what a busy one it's been. Angela Rayner has said that she did absolutely nothing wrong when she sold her council house after the police announced they were reviewing a decision not to investigate. The Deputy Labour leader told BBC Radio 4's Today programme she was confident she had not broken any rules. Well, we shall see about that.
Since those allegations were put to me, I got expert advice because I had advice at the time. I don't have an accountant. I was a home care worker. You know, I didn't have an accountant. I had, as most people would, you put your house on the market, you get a legal conveyancing solicitor, and you get an estate agent. But since those allegations were put to me, I got expert tax advice to make sure that I hadn't done anything wrong.
Great. Well, then you've got nothing to worry about, have you, Angela? The decision to determine whether to look into if Angela broke electoral rules was reconsidered after the Conservative MP James Daly made a complaint about Greater Manchester Police's handling of the issue. Good. The rules was to apply evenly if they decide to investigate. I mean, remember what you said about Boris? So if you are investigated, you know what to do. You told him to resign. Well, this week saw Sir Keir Starmer accusing the Prime Minister Rishi Sunak of trampling on Boris Johnson's levelling up agenda, claiming the plans were killed at birth by Rishi, the then Chancellor. The Labour leader praised the government's levelling up white paper, saying that much of the analysis in it was good. But Sir Keir went on to say the intention to invest in local communities never came to fruition, and Mr Sunak was to blame. You've got to hand it to Labour. They've played a blinder on the weak Tory party who capitulated and imploded over Partygate, which resulted in getting rid of Boris. The Tories, of course, are on course to becoming the third party. Should have kept Boris in the meantime, because, of course, Angela Rayner has provided convenient cover for Keir, who, after his word with Lindsay Hall, the Speaker, appeared to sort of change parliamentary procedure. And all of that has slipped under the radar. Whatever you do, don't go into the water. That is the message for the boat race today, after flooding the rivers with raw sewage and failing to build reservoirs or infrastructure. Water companies in England are taking the proverbial, with Thames Water needing $500 million to bring itself up to date. Its investors have refused to secure the cash, despite receiving big dividend payouts. They're blaming regulator Ofwat for making their plan uninvestable. Thames Water are also facing accusations of trying to blackmail the regulator into accepting its demands to hike customers' bills, that's you and us, up by 40%. Unbelievable. Reminds me of the Great Stink. Honestly, it makes no sense to privatise something that's essential to life and has no competition. How does that work? Clearly, it doesn't. Yesterday marked the end of term, which saw hundreds of school children storming the Milton Keynes shopping centre, causing mayhem as security guards struggled to contain the antisocial chaos. Around 300 children, some of them were brazen. They were still wearing their school uniform. They were seen rampaging through the shopping centre. Seriously, where are the parents? The kids have obviously seen how badly the pro-Palestine protests have been policed and worked out the law enforcers won't do anything. Lawless Britain, here we come. And on a lighter note, soldiers and officers are now allowed to grow beards while serving in the army. The beards and moustaches must be neat, properly groomed, and will be routinely checked. You can tell when peacetime is over, when woke rules are disbanded and reality kicks in. Who cares if you have a beard? Can you fight? So coming up, comedian John Martin, I almost called him Jordan, will be making light of this week's top stories in Mug the Week. At 3:20, I'll be speaking to performer Mustafa Uri Geller about the Easter celebrations in Israel. At 3:35, I'll be joined by a GP and medical writer, Dr. Rennie Hundekamp, to discuss the latest breakthrough in the fight against breast cancer. You won't want to miss that. Plus, we'll be live in Putney for the annual Oxford-Cambridge boat race. Former Labour Party adviser Matthew Laza is in the political hot seat spotlight this week. We'll be discussing Angela Rayner's refusal to publish personal tax advice she received over the sale of our council house. Well, that's all coming up. Tell me what you think on everything we're discussing. Email gbviews@gbnews.com or tweet me at gbnews. Well, joining me now to mock the week is comedian John Martin, who's on the short seat. What's happened to you?
I don't know.
Why have you gone?
I'm actually stood on my tiptoes. I'm not very tall, actually.
No, he's still standing.
Nana, it's lovely to be here.
Nice to see you.
Yeah, my wife drove me, so it's lovely to be anywhere, to be honest. I mean, I'm not criticising anyone's driving. I mean, I'm a really good driver. You want to see all the points I've got being awarded on my licence for my driving.
I'm a bit like you. First time I got points was about 4 years ago, and I've racked them up ever since.
You sound like my local football team, to be honest.
I've racked them up ever since.
But you know, in Britain, we used to say we drive on the left.
Yeah.
But with all the potholes, now we drive on what's left.
What's left?
I think.
What's left? Very good.
But I've just got this new car. I got one of those South Korean cars. And I'm driving and it keeps changing direction and it goes this way and then it goes that way and then all of a sudden it'll make a U-turn for totally no reason and it goes again different direction. It's what they call a Kia Starmer.
Ah, love it. Boom, boom.
Oh, it's great being here. I've just had a sandwich from the burger van outside and it's very upmarket. That's been awarded 4 Michelin tyres, apparently.
Very good, very good.
So
I was thinking you were going to go in that direction. I was thinking left, U-turn. It's got to be a Keir Starmer. What do you make?
Not against Keir Starmer, by the way. I mean, all these politicians, you know, you're just going through your list there. Yeah, I've never known a time, and I'm old. You're young.
How old is old?
So we've got Nana and Grandad. I've never known a time when there's been incompetence, when there's been ridiculousness from Parliament. These politicians, I don't know how many of them could get a job in the real world. It's unbelievable what's going on. You know, and people talk about reform. I mean, they say reform is the answer. If so, it must be a stupid question. But I think people are dying, absolutely dying for an alternative to the political system that we have at the moment. I think that's, you know, and if it's reform or anyone else coming through, I think that's what people are crying for. You know, they talk about the latest thing, they talk about the Rwanda thing is a deterrent. Well, it certainly is, because it's deterring people from voting Conservative because of the mess they've made of it. I mean, it's just lunacy. I mean, the Prime Minister, the unelected Prime Minister, by the way, I don't mean to be controversial, but the unelected Prime Minister, Rishi Sunak, you know, he's presiding over the disintegration of his political party. The way it carries on, we don't need the general election. So many MPs are standing down and having to by-elections. It'll be a change of government in a few weeks, the way things are carrying on. And I've never known incompetence. During the COVID crisis, and this is something I've spoke about on GBNews prior, during the COVID crisis, Rishi Sunak was Prime Minister, and he excluded from any support whatsoever nearly 3.5 million small businesses, freelancers.
Yeah.
It's just outrageous. And he say, you know, he goes on television and says, you know, we're helping everyone and no one's left alone. And then 3.5 million people were excluded. And, you know, one day I hope GBNews do a whole show about it, because it's the next scandal coming down the line. We've had the post office scandal. Which is ludicrous.
Another one.
You could solve it in 2 weeks. Pay these people.
Exactly.
Just pay the people what they're due, you know. We've had another honours list. Where this has come from, I don't know.
Yeah.
How come this guy, this leader of the post office,
That woman.
You know, Alan Bates.
Oh,
How
Alan
come
Bates.
he didn't get an award? We've just had us.
Well, I think he wants them to get the money. He's probably looking at it.
They all want to get the money.
Giving me an award when I just want the money. Give me the money.
Nana, they deserve the money.
Do.
Solve it. Don't go we'll have another committee meeting and let's have a vote and we'll have a discussion on
Lessons
this.
will be learned.
Just pay these people. It's way too long.
It's scandalous. It really
is a scandal.
So what about this business with Angela Rayner and her council house? That, you know, we don't know whether she's apparently done everything legally and correctly, and it just feels like there's more.
You know, I listen to all this going on with politicians and I was actually having a drink in the Westminster bar the other week, and at the end of the night, the barman shouted, "Come on, everyone, drink up. Haven't you got second homes to go to?" So, you know, there's scandal after scandal. How can a politician use a second house as another revenue stream? And this has been going on for years. I would cancel all that. I would put a big hotel, make it a plush hotel if you want, and say that's where you stay.
Well, I don't understand why they don't. But
it's lunacy. It's like a second revenue
Well, in other
stream.
countries, I think that's what they do, and it just seems very odd that these ones can... You get money for the second home, electricity. I remember the scandal with the expenses with the guy who brought a duck moat for the ducks. He said they didn't even like it. They didn't even like the moat.
It's horrendous. We're talking today about the boat race. This is
yeah.
I mean, I can't understand that now. How come Oxford and Cambridge keep getting to the final? I don't know. But they're talking about the filth going into the rivers.
It's absurd, isn't it?
And do you know what? It's really gets to me. It's you're relying on, not me, but you're relying on entertainers almost to come out and highlight. Fergal Sharkey is a singer, and yet he's so prominent, so speaks, you know, so passionately about clean water. You have Carol Vorderman. Again, an entertainer, but she's having to highlight so many things of I don't know if corruption is the,
well, if
is
she'd
the
stop,
wrong
you
word.
know, I think she's laid back on having a go at people on Twitter, which I think was a bit much, especially when she was working for the BBC. She left there so now she can have her voice quite freely and no one can criticise her.
And she does great with it, Nana. She does great. She highlights so many good things.
Well, she does, but I think she's very skewed to one side, and that does annoy me. That does irritate me. If she was to highlight the bad of the left and the bad of the right, I'd be listening.
But you know the point I'm making? These politicians aren't doing it. So you're relying on entertainers.
Well, none of us.
Vote entertainers, vote comedians.
We'll all do it.
We've got enough of them in 10 Downing Street.
I know, it really is quite bad, isn't it? And the water thing actually really does wind me up, though.
Oh, it's awful.
Because
awful.
the fact is, Ofwat, supposedly the regulator of this, they've got a revolving door of job vacancies, so people leave one of the big water companies, then they go to Ofwat. So they all know the rules, and it's constantly rotating. They're on some 1.5 million after doing this to the water.
It's horrendous. It's horrendous. And we see so many examples, not just of water, but, you know, of gas and electricity and all these things. It's horrendous. I've never known a time when our country, and I'm so proud to be, you know, British, but God, what's happened to the country? It's like turned into a, you know, it's going downhill fast.
And finally, what about the whole shop? Well, there's a few things, but the shop storming, kids in their school uniforms, so they're that brazen now. They've actually stormed the stores in Milton Keynes.
I saw that. You know, I mean, I was in my local shopping centre. I went in to buy a jacket, and it said on the label, slightly imperfect. I mean, OK, one sleeve was longer than the other two, but it was fine. No, you see this thing going on. It happens in America, and they go online and all arrange to meet at a shop. I just don't. I don't know what's happened to the country. I don't know what's happened to the police. Where are the police investigating?
Well, you've seen what they did.
More importantly, what's happened to 37 billion track and trace? What happened to that?
Well, they can't.
Where did it go? Where did it go? 37 billion pounds.
I know.
Where did it go?
I literally, you know, you couldn't make this stuff up. And then to finish on the fact that they're more concerned about people with beards joining the army now.
No, I just hope, you know, we're crying out for an election, we're crying out for change, and I just hope the police come in and have a look at all these contracts that were awarded and all this kind of thing, because that's what it needs. I honestly believe the Conservative Party, the leadership, know that they're going to be voted out, and perhaps they're just grabbing what they can.
Well, I don't know.
In the real world, that's what I would say.
Well, in the real world, a lot of them are actually leaving.
No, I've given you an Easter present instead of an egg. Is that
I want to be
okay?
a comedian, Mr. Tarbuck.
That's my
Comics
book.
Journey.
That's
by
my.
John
People
Martin.
collect stuff like that.
Do they?
Yeah, they're called bin men. You can get it on Amazon, but it's a bit far to go to buy a book.
It is a bit, isn't it? Thank you. John, it's been really good to talk to you.
It's been fabulous.
I've really enjoyed it. You have to come back again.
I'll have to. Can I have cash this time?
No. we don't kill cash. We won't kill cash here. Of course we will. Listen, John Martin, thank you so much, comedian.
Thank you.
John Martin, his book, A Comics Journey, is a must-read. I'm going to read it. Well, listen, in response to the Thames Water saga, they have said, I'd like to reassure our customers that despite this announcement, it is business as usual for Thames Water. Our 8,000 staff remain committed to working with our partners in the supply chain to provide our services for the benefit of our customers, communities and the environment. Thank you again to John Martin. This is GB News. It's just coming up to 20 minutes after 3 o'clock. I'm Nana Akua. We're live on TV, online and on digital radio. Coming up, we'll be live in Putney for the annual Oxford-Cambridge boat race. But next, I'll be speaking to performer Mr. Fire Uri Geller about Easter celebrations in Israel. This is GB News.
I'm Jacob Rees-Mogg and this is GB News, Britain's news channel.
Patrick Christie's Tonight, weekdays from 9 p.m.
Has the NHS killed your relative and then lied to you about it? There is an alleged cover-up culture in the NHS. They lie to you about why your loved one died, about poor care, then bury documents with evidence in them, and they try to silence staff who speak out. This is according to the NHS Ombudsman. There are around 11,000 avoidable deaths every year. 11,000. Someone's mum dies, their children know something dodgy happened, and then they're met with a rotten culture, including the altering of care plans, the disappearance of crucial documents, and complete denials. They lie to you, but they really get away with it because the NHS is like a religion, and people dare not criticise it. You'd be accused of NHSophobia. That annual budget is around £180 billion, and we now have about 2 million people working for the NHS. They cannot keep blaming everything on being underfunded and understaffed. If they're covering up medical negligence, it means the problem doesn't get dealt with and it keeps happening. And that is the fault of the NHS managers, the people who run it. They've got the money for 837 non-clinical staff working at English hospitals on the highest paid Band 9 contracts, which is between £99,000 and £115,000 a year. How many nurses would that pay for? How many junior doctors? And they've got the time on their hands to think about making the NHS the world's first carbon-neutral health service. They've got time to consider whether women in labour should be picked up by an electric ambulance that might have to be recharged en route to the hospital. There are NHS managers with a budget of £180 billion, 2 million members of staff, and they're crying about being understaffed and under-resourced. If they spent more time looking after patients instead of finding ways to cover up avoidable deaths, then maybe we'd have a better health service.
I'm Andrew Doyle. Join me at 7 o'clock every Sunday night for Free Speech Nation, the show where I tackle the week's biggest stories in politics and current affairs with the help of my 2 comedian panellists and a variety of special guests.
Free Speech Nation, Sunday nights from 7 on GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
Your weekend starts here with Friday Night Live with me, Mark Dolan, 8 till 9 on GB News. Big stories, big guests and big laughs as we get you ready for a cracking weekend. That's Friday Night Live with Mark Dolan, Fridays 8 till 9 on GB News. Bring your own drinks, the admission's free.
I'm Arlene Foster on GB News, Britain's news channel.
Good afternoon. If you just tuned in, where have you been? It's all right, it's just the start of the show. It's just come up to 24 minutes after 3 o'clock. This is GB News on TV, online and on digital radio. I'm Nana Akua. Right, though, now it's time to go live to Tel Aviv and have a chat with Mr. Fire Uri Geller and find out what's happening in Israel over Easter. Uri, thank you so much for joining me. I know you've got a special Easter message for us.
Yes, it's a powerful Easter message. But first of all, Nana, I want to wish you and all GB News viewers a very happy Easter. This is an extra special greeting because I'm saying it to you from the Holy Land. Feel the energy, feel the power of the Holy Land. Now, did you know that the Christian population of Israel is at a record high? There are close to 200,000 Christians here. Israel is the only place in the whole of the Middle East where Christianity is growing. Christians are persecuted everywhere else. Israel is the only country where Christians are completely free. Now, right opposite my museum, I'm in my museum now, where I'm now standing, there is a beautiful church and there are Arab Christian restaurants. The owners are my friends, and I always eat there. Their food is among the best in the world. Look, Nana, Israel is a place to be at Easter. There are Easter decorations everywhere, and Christian pilgrims love to come here. In Jerusalem, by the way, you can walk in Jesus's footsteps on Via della Rosa. And of course, you can visit the actual site of Jesus's crucifixion and resurrection. Wow. Now look above me, Nana. That painting was actually painted by a British painter called Andy Harwood. The original was sold to Abu Dhabi. That painting is called Salvatore Mundi. And the crystal orb that Jesus is holding in his hand is up there. That is actually the original crystal, and I got it as a gift from Salvador Dali. Now, this is important. Did you know, Nana, that there are Christians in Gaza? Yes, there are about 1,000, and they are persecuted by Hamas. They have been attacked, murdered, and some have been forced to convert into Islam. Listen, this is terrible. Christian graves have been dug up for polluting the earth. This is unbelievable. It's horrific. But do you see any protests, Nana? Never. Where are the human rights fanatics? Where are the people marching in the streets? The answer is because no one really cares. They only care about condemning Israel, the one country which protests and protects Christians. Now, let me just finish. I don't want to be too down about it. So please, let me again wish all your Christian viewers a very happy Easter. And next year, Nana, please, you've got to come to Israel, to the Holy Land, and you've got to do your show from here, from my museum. Is that a deal?
That is a deal, Uri. I would absolutely love to do my show. Is that a deal, team? To do my show in Israel from Uri's museum. I would absolutely love to do that, Uri. Such an honour.
And I'll take you around. I love you all. And again, positive energy from the Holy Land to all of you for Easter.
Uri Geller, it's really good to talk to you. Thank you so much. Really good to speak to you. That is the brilliant Uri Geller. He's there in Israel. And, of course, you know, I do understand what he's saying there. And people are condemning, you know, he does feel that people are condemning Israel. But, you know, and obviously we do have we do think and feel a lot for those people who are in Gaza as well. So just to, you know, nobody wants to see any death and destruction. Well, if you just joined us, welcome. This is GB News. I'm Nana Akua. We're live on TV, online and on digital radio, and loads more still to come. Now, don't forget, get in touch, gbviews@gbnews.com, or tweet me at GBNews. We'll get all your messages and I'll read some of them out as well. Coming up on the show, the fabulous Matthew Larze. He's not in the hot seat. He's not going to be at one of my panels today. He's going to be my political spotlight. And we're going to be shining a light on the Labour Party and asking whether it's true, because the greatest pollster of all time, John Curtis, I think it was him that said that there's a 99.9% chance or 99% chance that, in fact, the Labour Party will win this next coming general election. So, of course, we're talking about Easter Check this out, because there's so many things about Easter weekend, and most of us have polished off a lot of Easter eggs, 1 or 2 already. Chocolate eggs have been on sale in shops for weeks now, but customers in Gosford in Hampshire have been buying their eggs from the local fish and chip shop, dipped in batter and deep-fried perfection. So we sent our South West of England reporter Jeff Moody to try one.
Customers at Scott's Place in Gosport are queuing out of the door. But it's not a battered sausage that's bringing them out on Easter weekend. It's a cream egg, rubbed in flour, dipped in batter and deep fried in oil. Sounds disgusting.
Well, you say that, but they do come out quite nice. They are a peculiar taste, but it's very tasty.
What's nice about it?
It makes the chocolate go all gooey and like brownie-like, and then it makes the filling nice and hot.
Scott Turner sells deep-fried Mars bars too, and he just can't fry them fast enough. He sold 48 deep-fried battered cream eggs on day 1, and that number has been rising by the day.
Absolutely amazing. People love them. People are trying them that don't like the idea of it, but saying, oh my God, how amazing they are. I mean, it's something you're either going to love or hate.
But mostly people love it?
Absolutely loving it, yeah.
The idea of combining batter and chocolate isn't really for the faint-hearted. They're two flavours that many would say don't go together particularly well. Time to try it. They go together really, really well. It's delicious. But don't take my word for it. What do the good people of Gosport think?
It sounds very strange. Personally, I wouldn't go for it normally, but I'm willing to have a try. It's quite good.
Oh dear. That's good. That's actually got sort of a brownie texture type to it. That couldn't be good for the waistline.
Smells good.
Did you do it? You just do it again.
Oh God, that's good. That's really good. I don't know how to describe it, but it's just really, really good.
It's actually really good. Oh my God, it's actually really, really good. It's not good though, because it's so unhealthy.
So if you're bored with ordinary Easter eggs, you know what you can do. Batter them, stick them in the chip pan. Confection perfection. Jeff Moody, GB News.
Oh, that looks good, doesn't it? Oh, I might try that. Actually, I won't try it at home. This is GB News on TV, online and on digital radio. On the way, former Labour Party advisor Matthew Laza will be joining me for this week's Political Spotlight. Up next, I'll be speaking to Dr. Rennie Hundekamp about the latest breakthrough in breast cancer research. You won't want to miss that. But first, let's get your latest news headlines.
It's 3:31. I'm Sophia Wensler in the GB newsroom. Your headlines. A league table showing the nationalities of migrants with the highest crime rates has been proposed. A group of Tory MPs wants to see the statistics published annually for every offender convicted in England and Wales. They say the rules will help the Home Office impose stricter visa and deportation policies for certain countries. Former Immigration Minister Robert Jenrick is behind the plan. Speaking exclusively to GB News, he said the public wants to know how arrivals to the UK are impacting the country.
It is wrong that the government or other agencies hide statistics. I have laid an amendment to the upcoming criminal justice bill, which tackles one of these issues, and it says that the government must publish statistics on crimes and sentences by country of origin and by visa and asylum status.
Following the resignation of Sir Geoffrey Donaldson, the interim DUP leader, Gavin Robinson, has told colleagues the party is not about any one individual and says it exists to build a better and stronger Northern Ireland. Sir Geoffrey has been charged with historical sex offences. The PSNI has since warned against speculation on social media, which may lead to the identification of victims. It's understood Sir Geoffrey's told his party's officers he will strenuously contest the allegations against him. Almost 5,000 small boats have crossed the Channel so far this year, with Border Force taking almost 300 people to Dover after intercepting them today. The Home Office says French counterparts are facing growing dangers as they attempt to intervene, with police saying they're experiencing growing levels of violence and disruption on northern beaches. And classic Magnum ice creams are being recalled over fears they may contain metal. Manufacturer Unilever says the precautionary measure follows internal safety checks. Products sold in packs of 3 are being recalled with the warning linked to 5 batches with a best before date of the 25th of November. The company has apologised and says no other Magnum products are affected. And for the latest stories, sign up to GB News Alerts by scanning the QR code on your screen or go to gbnews.com/alerts. Now it's back to Nana.
Thank you so much, Sophia. I'm Nana Akua. This is GB News on TV, online and on digital radio. Still to come, Dr. René Hunderkamp will be in the studio live, and then we've got Matthew Laza in for My Political Spotlight.
Join me, Camilla Tominey, every Sunday at 9:30 when I'll be interviewing the key players in British politics and taking them to task.
This report basically says that he's not fit to stand trial.
With an upcoming election looming over Westminster, now is the time for clear, honest answers.
I agree.
And that's precisely what I'll get.
Is he indecisive? Incompetent?
That's the Camilla Tominey Show at 9:30 every Sunday on GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's election channel.
GB News is the home of free speech. We were created to champion it, and we deliver it day in, day out.
Free speech allows us all to explore and debate openly the issues most important to us, our families, and of course, the British people.
Having challenging conversations to enlighten each other.
Which is why we hear all sides of the argument.
We are the People's Channel.
We will always stand by the freedom to express yourself.
On TV, radio and online.
This is GB News, Britain's news channel.
Dubes & Co. Weekdays from 6 p.m.
The Guardian's not happy, everybody, because one of their headline stories today was about a private members club that is for gentlemen only, the Garrick Club I refer to in London. There's accusations now, Quinton, that it's all the kind of upper echelons of society, all the powerful...
It's a cabal of important, powerful people who are running the country.
And I thought to myself, when I heard descriptions like that, I bet Quinton Letts is somehow involved. Are you?
I've been to the Garrick a few times.
Why can't women be members?
Because it's a gents' club. My daughter, one of my daughters, is a member of an all-women's club called the University Women's Club, and they don't allow blokes in. It's an outrage. No, it's not. It's a free country.
I mean, it's archaic and it needs to change.
What is?
You know, is my view. The fact that the Garrick doesn't admit women members. There are lots of these members clubs, you know, across London, probably in other parts of the country as well. And, you know, you have to pay for membership, so it is well-to-do members of society that go. I've nothing against them existing, but all of them have changed their constitution. Those that were once men only, you know, they all now admit women. The only exception now is the Garrick. My other thought is, well, why are we talking about it if we've got nothing more important going on?
Just to be frank, I genuinely could not care less if there is a club that I'm not allowed into because of my sex. I do, though, think that if you're going to start...
You're allowed in, though. They let them in.
Yeah, but not as members.
Yeah.
But I do think if you're going to start, you know, having all of this kind of respect and all the rest of it for single-sex spaces for men, then you can't, as a society, allow the ridiculousness that goes on in female spaces when a man sticks a dress on and a wig maybe and a bit of lipstick if he's feeling bold and says that he's called Sharon and then wants to be allowed into that space, and then those establishments then buckle and let those men actually into things like changing rooms of women. That really, really annoys me.
Welcome back. If you went somewhere, why? This is GB News. We're live on TV, online and on digital radio. I'm Nana Akua. Now listen, there is exciting news in the fight against breast cancer. As scientists have made a groundbreaking discovery on targeting hibernating tumour cells. Now this breakthrough offers promising prospects for patients with estrogen receptor-positive breast cancer, the most common type. So joining me now to discuss is a GP and medical writer, Dr. René. Dr. René.
Here again.
Both in green.
I know.
Talk to me about this. Talk to me about it. It's fascinating.
So this is really interesting. So all cells in the body are constantly undergoing damage or things that change them. So, for example, when you're pregnant and your breasts change, talking about breasts, cells undergo changes, but the body corrects them all of the time. So we've got these T cells running around correcting problems. They've discovered that in women that have the gene for breast cancer, BRCA1 and BRCA2, that's also responsible for ovarian cancer as well. These T cells are exhausted. They don't work properly. Now, normally we only see this in T cells in late-stage cancer, where they've tried so hard to fight the cancer and make it right that they are exhausted. But unfortunately, these women with BRCA have got them very early on before they've even got disease. But that's quite exciting because in knowing that, we can then, we hope, because we've still got trials to go, use the immunotherapies that we use late in cancer to try and stimulate those cells, use them early on in women that are at risk so that they never get cancer. And the exciting thing about that is that women with this gene that then don't have to have mastectomies, which are emotionally and physically damaging. They don't have to have their womb and uterus out because we can stop the cancer developing. So it is really exciting. And I think my view on this when I read it was the more we know about the genes involved in cancer, the more than we can look for commonality amongst the people that have got that gene to see what it is that's driving it. And this is how they discovered this. So they looked at 800,000 breast cells from women who had the genes and discovered the thing that was common to them were these exhausted T cells. So now they can look for a solution to that.
So what about the hibernating cells? Because these are ones where they think they got rid of the cancer, but then some of them lay dormant and they've not exposed themselves so they don't get killed by chemotherapy. So they've found a way of getting them to express themselves early.
So again, and it's all to do with the immune system and recharging it so that these things show themselves and they can then actually just target them with these immunotherapies. I mean, immunotherapies are absolutely magical when they work, but we're still in early stages.
What does it really mean when you're talking about immunotherapy? Because people hear that and what does it mean?
So immunotherapy actually targets one particular cell, and your immune system is made up of hundreds of different types of cells who all have a different job. Most of them are interlinked. And in these cancers, things have gone wrong and you don't have enough of them or you don't have the specific one. So an immunotherapy drug actually stimulates your own immune system to find something on the cells and then kill that cancer cell.
So it's your own immune system, not some external thing, so it stimulates. What if you've got an autoimmune condition? Because the last thing you want is the stimulation of the immune cells, because they tend to attack you.
They do, but we also use immunotherapy in autoimmune conditions by dampening down the cells that are attacking you. So it actually is an immunosuppressant that then stops those cells that are causing your, arthritis, whatever it is, lupus, from actually attacking you. So they just use them in different ways to either accelerate or dampen down the cells that are going rogue.
So they can target specific cells within the immunotherapy.
And turn them on or turn them off.
Some on and some off. That's impressive, isn't it?
It is impressive.
But it's individual tailored medicine. That's going to take time, isn't it?
It's going to take time. It's also going to take people to feel happy enough to give up their genetic information to be looked at. And I think for some people, even me to a degree, for some people that's still a bit of a scary issue, not because you don't want this kind of advance, because you wonder what else people are going to use it for.
That's true. It's always the way, isn't it? We find something good, then we do something bad. Dr. René, thank you so much for talking to me about that.
Pleasure.
And clearing that up. Wow. Well, listen, stay tuned. An impressive development. Let's see how it progresses. But coming up, Political Spotlight, where former Labour Party advisor Matthew Lala will be joining me in to shine a light on this week's politics. Next, though, Oxford and Cambridge go head-to-head in the annual boat race. You won't want to miss it.
Hello there, welcome to your latest GB News weather forecast on the Met Office. So as we go through the rest of this Easter weekend, we will see some further sunshine, but there is still some rain in the forecast, all courtesy of areas of low pressure which are going to hang around across the British Isles as we go through the coming days. So as we end Saturday, for many actually, we will see clearing skies, but there will be some heavy showers still down towards the southwest of England, and they will spread their way towards southwest Wales and eventually into Northern Ireland towards the end of the night. And at the same time, some misty low cloud will just begin to spill in from the North Sea. But where we do see the clearest of the skies, we will see a touch of frost as we start Easter Day. But we will see plenty of sunshine first thing across many central parts. But this misty low cloud will spill its way further westwards as we go through the course of the day. So come the afternoon, many parts of England and Wales will see plenty of cloud, a few spits and spots of rain. So the best of the brightness will be across Scotland and Northern Ireland, but here we'll continue the risk of a few showers. Temperature-wise, in the sunshine, reaching around 14 or 15 degrees. And then looking ahead to Easter Monday, a rather wet picture for many parts of England and Wales, some heavy rain in places. Scotland and Northern Ireland drier with some brightness here, but certainly under that rain, not feeling too great. And unfortunately, the unsettled conditions do look like they will continue as we head towards the middle of the week.
Join me, Camilla Tominey, every Sunday at 9:30 when I'll be interviewing the key players in British politics and taking them to task.
This report basically says that he's not fit to stand trial.
With an upcoming election looming over Westminster, now is the time for clear, honest answers.
I agree.
And that's precisely what I'll get.
Is he indecisive? Incompetent?
That's the Camilla Tominey Show at 9:30 every Sunday on GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's election channel.
I'm Michelle Dewberry, and I'm not here to tell you what to think. I'd much rather hear what you have to say. So send in your opinions to gbviews@gbnews.com. Keep them clean, and you never know, I might read them out. With my panel here on Jubes & Co, we debate, we get stuck into the issues of the day on a show where all views are welcome, especially yours. GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
2024, a battleground year.
The year the nation decides.
As the parties gear up their campaigns for the next general election.
Who will be left standing when the British people make one of the biggest decisions of their lives?
Who will rise?
And who will fall?
Let's find out together.
For every moment, the highs, the lows, the twists and turns.
We'll be with you for every step of this journey.
In 2024, GB News is Britain's election channel.
So good afternoon, welcome on board. This is GB News. I'm Nana Akua. We are the People's Channel. Now, the Cambridge women's team is celebrating victory as they beat Oxford University in the annual boat race on the River Thames for the 7th time in a row. The men's boat race is about to get underway. But will Cambridge retain their title? Well, GB News reporter Will Hollis is riverside. Don't fall in, Will. Don't fall in. So talk to me. What's it like out there?
Yes, well, if you were on that end, you'd be hearing the celebration of Cambridge women. But right now, here at Putney Bridge, you can probably hear the cheering from people that are spectating on the banks of the River Thames, and I'm just seeing people pointing to the side because the men's boat race has just begun. Oxford and Cambridge have been racing for for almost 200 years. This is a real tradition, not just for the universities, but also for the local culture here in Putney. There's lots of people as well coming from around the world. We've spoken to Canadians, we've spoken to Americans, as well as a lot of people from Europe, and they're just going over our shoulder as well, actually. If you can just look into this direction, it looks like they're pretty much neck and neck, to be honest. But as you said very rightly at the start there, Nana, Cambridge hold the title and they seem to do really well over the last 5 years. Cambridge women have just taken it about an hour ago as well. It's going to be a really tight race, and it tends to be pretty tight. This has been making headlines around the world, but it's also been making headlines for all of the wrong reasons, particularly because of sewage pollution here along this section of the River Thames. The River Action Group, as well as the Fulham Boat Club, have assessed the levels of pollution just around the corner where the rowing boats are going to be passing. You can see just the effect. In fact, we might even get splashed by a little bit of water. It's come up really high, and in the distance you can see all the boats following, as well as the police. But the levels of E. coli are massively higher than they should be, 10 times higher than the safe standards by the Environment Agency. The Environment Agency recently released those record figures for 2023, twice as much levels of sewage discharge in 2023. And my feet have just been soaked. Oh my God. My feet are absolutely soaked in river water. I hope I don't have any I hope I don't have any blisters or anything, because that is full of E. coli. Absolutely full of E. coli, and my nice coat is absolutely covered. We've left our coats all over the floor, and they're absolutely covered, Nana. So we can only imagine what's going on down there into the far distance, 4¼ miles to the end of this course, where the water is splashing up everywhere, and hopefully those rowers from Oxford and Cambridge aren't getting too splashed, because the warning from the organisers is not to get wet, not to get river water into your cuts and into your blisters, and not to jump in. But I think all of that has gone out of the window right now, with my feet absolutely soaking, Nana.
Well, you better get us have a wash, for God's sake, Will, and just close your mouth. That's Will Hollis. He's our GB News reporter. He's out there at the Oxford and Cambridge boat race by the Thames. Wow. Poor man. Wash your coat as well. This is GB News. Welcome on board. It's time now for this week's Political Spotlight, and joining me to shine a light is former Labour Party advisor Matthew Laza. Well, Matthew, Angela Rayner has again denied any wrongdoing, as police say that they're assessing a decision not to investigate claims she gave false information on official documents. We've also got the case of the deputy leader who's facing questions about whether she paid the right amount of tax in 2015 for the sale of her house. She said she's received legal advice and she didn't break any rules, and she's also refused to make that tax advice public. So joining me now, Matthew Laza. Well.
Yeah, well, look, I mean, I think Angela Rayner's had better weeks, it would be fair to say. I think actually we're in the right place now, because it's being looked at by the local council in Stockport and Greater Manchester, which is the council responsible, and by the Greater Manchester Police. Greater Manchester Police had a quick look and sort of said there was nothing to investigate. They've had further complaints from a Tory MP, so they are looking at it in more detail. I think it's probably right. They look at it properly.
Yes.
Angela has said she's got legal advice, that she's convinced she's paid all the right things and done all the right things. And I think that advice would have gone to Sue Gray, who's Keir's chief of staff, who was the ethics chief. Sue Gray, who is pretty tough with people who break the rules, and will get them, you know. And actually, and you know, I wouldn't have a reason to protect Angela. You know, if it was going to come out later on, she'd want to get the pain in early, because that's what everybody in politics wants to do. So I think that it's going to be all right for Angela when the investigations are looked at. But I'm glad they're being looked at independently now, so that will put it to bed once and for all.
Should we have a quick look at what she actually said? Let's see what Angela said about this.
Happy if we are going to have a level playing field, and we suddenly decide that Conservative ministers need to hand over their tax affairs. I'm happy to, if you show me yours and I'll show you mine.
Show me yours, I'll show you mine. Last time I said that was at school.
Yeah, I mean, look, I think Angela, I mean, we may not agree with it, but Angela sometimes feels that she's treated unfairly because she's a working-class woman, she's not a graduate, she left school at 16, and that she gets a hard time for it. That's what she thinks.
Typical cliches that people bring out to try and use as defence.
I think it's right that it's being looked at independently, and we'll get the definitive answers on whether she's got any questions, whether she's got anything.
She should show the advice. If that's
I think now it's. I think I agree with you if it wasn't being investigated, because like that wouldn't. How would you put an end to it? But as it's all going to be, as it's being looked at, I think it'd be weird if she showed the advice.
Well, they haven't decided whether they're going to investigate.
The council is investigating. Yeah, the council. Yeah, the police are going to have another look at whether they should look in more depth, and the council are looking as well in terms of the electoral registration, whether she was in the wrong address and council tax and things like that. So hopefully we'll get some definitive answers, because you know, Angela's not everybody's cup of tea, but she is a refreshing voice in politics. No. We don't have, you know, politics is full of men like me who've been special advisors, and so it's nice to have somebody who has proper real-world experience. You know, I'm not sure I'd want everyone to be like Angela Rayner in the House of Commons, but I wouldn't want everyone to be like Keir Starmer or Rishi Sunak or either. So I think she brings a useful voice.
Well, yes, but she's got to be, you know, she's got to
play by the rules.
She's got to play by the rules. If she isn't, and she's telling other people. I mean, if this does go into an investigation, which it hasn't yet.
No, it hasn't yet.
There's no. Then you know, she did call for Boris Johnson to resign if he was under investigation. So let's for her.
I think I think fingers crossed for her that it comes out the right way. She's obviously confident about that because she's got this independent advice. I think if it had told her
that she won't let anyone.
I think if it had told her to pay it's £3.5 grand is the amount. I think if it told her that she hadn't,
plus interest if she's
plus
paying.
Interest, I think a cheque would have been written if she'd been told that, because that would have been a way of trying to close it down. So they must be pretty confident. Otherwise, they wouldn't be risking it.
Now, what do you make of this polling? John Curtis, I think it was John Curtis.
Yeah, it was.
The Labour Party have 99% chance of winning.
Yeah, I actually don't agree with... I mean, I think Labour, clearly at the moment, as things stand, Labour is overwhelmingly likely, but a lot of things can go wrong, as we've seen, events, dear boy events, as former Prime Minister once said in the 50s. So you could see Labour derailed, something could go wrong, but I think you'd have to see something go very wrong for Labour not to become the largest party. And I think it's the question of whether Labour will get a majority and how big that majority will be, because Labour will come under a lot of scrutiny over the next 6 months, with Sunak having decided not to call the election. I think that's obviously one of the reasons that his number 10 say that they delay in the election is so there can be more scrutiny on Labour's proposals.
I think that's wise as well. People are saying, call the election. I'm thinking, no. Let's see what these people... If it's a 99% dead cert, and John Curtis is pretty good with it...
No, I mean, I used to do election night programmes with him all the time, and you don't know... So I think he's right as it stands at the moment, but obviously the idea is that the longer it goes on, that, wheels could fall off the Labour bus, and even if all four wheels don't fall off it, at least Labour would, be under pressure in a way that it hasn't been. But we've seen this extraordinary story today. The Daily Mail's done this polling, which shows that Labour is more trusted on defence and on spending more on defence.
Well, that's
than the
not
Tories.
difficult, is it?
No, but this just shows how on every area it used to be that defence was like Labour's Achilles heel. So things are going in the right direction. Let's hope Angela is saved.
And briefly, what about the fact they're talking about Reform being the second party?
Yes. Well, I think the Blackpool by-election, which is coming up, is the one to watch because we'll see what happens with Reform there. I think the Tories are very worried. It's good territory for them up in Blackpool. I think Labour will win that, but it's good territory to see how well Reform actually do.
Well, I think the Labour Party also need to be careful because I think Reform are picking at Labour's votes.
I think Reform could be a big danger for Labour if Labour gets into power with if people are unsatisfied. So I don't think that. Yeah, I think at the moment they're more of a danger to the Tories, but I think in the future they could be a big danger to Labour.
Well, listen, Matthew Lowes, it's such a pleasure.
It was a pleasure to be with you.
You'll be on the panel.
And you'll have more of me next week.
You'll be back on the panel next week. Coming up, of course, Lizzie Cundy and the fabulous James Schneider will be joining me now. But my monologue is up next. But first, let's get an update with your weather.
Looks like things are heating up. Boxed boilers, sponsors of weather on GB News.
Hello there, welcome to your latest GB News weather forecast on the Met Office. As we go through the rest of this Easter weekend, we will see some further sunshine, but there is still some rain in the forecast, all courtesy of areas of low pressure which are going to hang around across the British Isles as we go through the coming days. So as we end Saturday, for many actually, we will see clearing skies, but there will be some heavy showers still down towards the southwest of England, and they will spread their way towards southwest Wales and eventually into Northern Ireland towards the end of the night. And at the same time, some misty low cloud will just begin to spill in from the North Sea. But where we do see the clearest of the skies, we will see a touch of frost as we start Easter Day. But we will see plenty of sunshine first thing across many central parts. But this misty low cloud will spill its way further westwards as we go through the course of the day. So come the afternoon, many parts of England and Wales will see plenty of cloud, a few spits and spots of rain. So the best of the brightness will be across Scotland and Northern Ireland, but here we'll continue the risk of a few showers. Temperature-wise, in the sunshine, reaching around 14 or 15 degrees. And then looking ahead to Easter Monday, a rather wet picture for many parts of England and Wales, some heavy rain in places. Scotland and Northern Ireland drier with some brightness here, but certainly under that rain, not feeling too great. And unfortunately, the unsettled conditions do look like they will continue as we head towards the middle of the week.
That warm feeling inside from Boxed Boilers, sponsors of weather on GB News.
I'm Michelle Dewberry, and I'm not here to tell you what to think. I'd much rather hear what you have to say. So send in your opinions to gbviews@gbnews.com. Keep them clean, and you never know, I might read them out. With my panel here on Jubes & Co, we debate, we get stuck into the issues of the day on a show where all views are welcome, especially yours. GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
2024, a battleground year.
The year the nation decides.
As the parties gear up their campaigns for the next general election.
Who will be left standing when the British people make one of the biggest decisions of their lives?
Who will rise?
And who will fall?
Let's find out together.
For every moment, the highs, the lows, the twists and turns.
We'll be with you for every step of this journey.
In 2024, GB News is Britain's election channel.
Your weekend starts here with Friday Night Live with me, Mark Dolan, 8 till 9 on GB News. Big stories, big guests and big laughs as we get you ready for a cracking weekend. That's Friday Night Live with Mark Dolan, Fridays 8 till 9 on GB News. Bring your own drinks, the admission's free.
Good afternoon, Britain.
Good afternoon, Britain.
Weekdays from midday, we bring you the most compelling stories from across the United Kingdom.
And why it matters to you. From your doorstep to our inbox.
That's right, we want to hear from you. Good afternoon, Britain. Only on GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
I'm Andrew Doyle. Join me at 7 o'clock every Sunday night for Free Speech Nation, the show where I tackle the week's biggest stories in politics and current affairs with the help of my two comedian panellists and a variety of special guests.
Free Speech Nation, Sunday nights from 7 on GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
I'm Christopher Hope.
And I'm Gloria Di Piero, bringing you
PMQ's live here on GB News.
Whenever Parliament is in session on a Wednesday at midday, we'll bring you live coverage of Prime Minister's questions. We'll be asking our viewers and listeners to submit the questions that they would like to put to the Prime Minister, and we'll put that to our panel of top politicians in our Westminster studio.
That's PMQ's live here on GB News, Britain's election channel.
2024, a battleground year.
The year the nation decides.
As the parties gear up their campaigns for the next general election.
Who will be left standing when the British people make one of the biggest decisions of their lives?
Who will rise?
And who will fall?
Let's find out together.
For every moment, the highs, the lows, the twists and turns.
We'll be with you for every step of this journey.
In 2024, GB News is Britain's election channel.
Good afternoon, hello and welcome to GB News on TV, online and on digital radio. It's fast approaching 4 o'clock. I'm Nana Akua. And for the next 2 hours, me and my panel will be taking on some of the big topics hitting the headlines right now. This show is all about opinion. It's mine, it's theirs, and of course it's yours. We'll be debating, discussing, and at times we will disagree, but no one will be cancelled. So joining me today is broadcaster and columnist Lizzie Cundy and also former advisor to Jeremy Corbyn, James Schneider. Well, here's what else is coming. You couldn't smile a bit. For the Great British Debate this hour, I'm asking, is it time to nationalise water? Then Angela Levin will be here to give us the latest from behind the palace walls in Royal Roundup. At 5, it's my difficult conversation. A man living with HIV will be taking us through how he turned his illness into empowerment. You will not want to miss his story. But before all of that, let's get your latest news headlines.
Good afternoon to you. These are the latest news headlines. The nationalities of migrants who commit crimes could be posted on a league table, with ministers saying it would give the government more power to tighten immigration laws. A group of Tory MPs wants to see statistics on every offender convicted in England and Wales published annually. They say the rules will help the Home Office impose stricter visa and deportation policies for individuals from certain countries. The former Immigration Minister, Robert Jenrick, is behind the plan. Speaking exclusively to GB News, he said he wants the public to know what impact rivals to the UK are having on the country.
I want the most honest and transparent debate about immigration, legal or illegal, that we can possibly have. And it is wrong that the government or other agencies hide statistics. I have laid an amendment to the upcoming criminal justice bill, which tackles one of these issues, and it says that the government must publish statistics on crimes and sentences by country of origin and by visa and asylum status. I think that the public want to know who's coming into our country and what the economic, the fiscal and the societal impact of immigration is.
Now, almost 5,000 small boats have crossed the Channel so far this year, with Border Force officials escorting almost 300 illegal migrants onto Dover today after intercepting them. The Home Office says their French counterparts are facing growing dangers in their efforts to intervene. French police are saying they're experiencing increasing levels of violence and disruption on the northern beaches of France. The interim DUP leader, Gavin Robinson, has told colleagues the party is not about any one individual, saying it exists to build a better and stronger Northern Ireland. It follows the shock resignation of Sir Geoffrey Donaldson, who's been charged with historical sex offences. The Police Service of Northern Ireland has since warned against any speculation on social media, which may lead to the identification of one of the victims. It's understood Sir Geoffrey's told his party officers he will strenuously contest the allegations against him. Now, counter-terrorism police are investigating the stabbing of an exiled Iranian journalist in southwest London. Pouria Zarati, who was targeted outside his home in Wimbledon, is said to be in a stable condition after suffering an injury to his leg. The London-based television channel Iran International says the attack follows Tehran's plot to kill two of its presenters in 2022. It's calling for stronger action against the regime. Police say they're keeping an open eye regarding motives. Two security sources have accused Israel of striking a car carrying UN observers in southern Lebanon. The United Nations peacekeeping mission says 4 people were injured. The Israeli military has denied any involvement. Meanwhile, further aid drops have been carried out in Gaza. The US military saying it's conducted 18 such missions this month. Yesterday, the UK dropped more than 10 tonnes of food and humanitarian supplies, including rice, flour, tin goods and water, to help civilians affected by the ongoing conflict. In the Netherlands, a hostage situation in a nightclub has ended peacefully. Police arrested a man who was wearing a balaclava after he walked out of the venue. Witnesses say he came out with his hands in the air. Several people had been held in the club inside, but the authorities have confirmed they've all now been released. Here in the UK, household budgets are to be hit by bigger bills, we're told. A range of services and products, including broadband, mobiles, TV licences and stamps are all going up from Monday. The average annual council tax bill is also increasing by £106, and water and sewage charges in England and Wales are going to rise by £27 a year. It's not all bad news, though. National insurance is going down, along with some energy bills falling to their lowest level in 2 years. But I do have a bit of bad news for you. Classic Magnum ice creams are being recalled over fears they may contain metal. The manufacturer, Unilever, says the precautionary measure follows internal safety checks, and products sold in packs of 3 are being recalled with the warning linked to 5 batches with the best before date of the 25th of November. The company's apologised and says no other Magnum products are affected. For the very latest stories, do sign up to GB News Alerts, scan the QR code on your screen, or go to gbnews.com/alerts.
Thank you, Polly. Good afternoon. It's fast approaching 6 minutes after 4 o'clock. This is GB News. We are the People's Channel. I'm Nana Akua. We're live on TV, online and on digital radio. I resent the fact that something that is naturally resourced and something which is actually a monopoly is owned by China, Kuwait, Abu Dhabi, etc., who clearly don't give us stuff. I'm talking, of course, about our water, and specifically the water companies in England. Water is a vital and free source that comes from the sky. And as far as I can see, it's plentiful, but it's been sold down the river. Whilst the government in Scotland sensibly control the water there, and in Wales it's run as a not-for-profit company, in England we have foolishly sold out to companies from abroad whose shareholders come first. Instead of investing their profits back into improving the infrastructure as promised and building reservoirs to service an ever-expanding population, water companies in England have dished out billions to their shareholders in the form of dividends. The result has been devastating. Last year alone saw a 105% increase in raw sewage discharges for just over 12 months. 3.6 million hours were reported, which made 2023 the worst year for stormwater pollution. Just imagine that for a moment, if you will. Over 3.6 million hours of untreated raw sewage going into our rivers and our waterways. It's disgusting. A loophole allows water companies to discharge during heavy rainfall, and we've had a lot of that. This has apparently been one of the wettest years on record. Some of the worst offenders were Anglian Water, who discharged for around about 273,163 hours, a 205% increase. Wessex Water at 372,341 hours. And Thames Water, who saw a 163% increase to 196,414 hours of untreated raw sewage being discharged. The result? E. coli in, for example, the Thames is rampant. In the stretch where the boat race took place today, the customary celebration of jumping into the water afterwards has been banned. And with nearby areas like the River Acton recording nearly 10 times the acceptable level for bathing, I'm not surprised. The athletes taking part have also been advised to cover any blisters or wounds in case the water gets into them. It's horrendous. The effect of wildlife has been devastating.
And in the marine life just beneath our feet, we're actually finding they're full of drugs. They're full of contraceptive pill, antidepressants, anti-anxiety medication. Every single marine species that we've looked at so far is full of cocaine.
So whilst water companies have been fined by the useless regulator Ofwat, the fines have been factored into their business model, and it's actually far more cost-effective for them to pay them than to invest in the infrastructure needed to solve the problems. The extent of the damage being done by these companies was uncovered by an Ofwat investigation, whose spokesperson said, "We have strengthened the rules to allow us to take enforcement action against companies that pay dividends to its shareholders where their environmental performance does not meet our expectations. Where companies fall short, we act." Over recent years, we have imposed penalties of over £300 million, and we currently have our biggest ever investigation underway, with live investigations into 6 companies. But with the CEOs of some of these companies on an average of 1.5 million a year, which means they're doing a great job for the shareholders, and the revolving door between the water companies and Ofwat, they know how to play the system. They have refused to put in the investment required, instead requesting that Ofwat approve doubling our bills. I think not. Let me tell you what I would do. What these water companies have done to the environment is, in my view, criminal. It's not often I agree with Ed Davey. He said the scandal of raw sewage pouring into our waterways should be declared a national emergency, and he called for a meeting with SAGE, the Government Scientific Advisory Committee, to look into the impact raw sewage has on people's health. I would fine them their entire value and put these worthless companies back into public ownership. Either that or an environmental class action against them. So before we get stuck into the debates, here's what else is coming up today. For the Great British Debate this hour, I'm asking, is it time to renationalise water? Thames Water has plunged into financial crisis, with bosses refusing to rule out a 40% hike in bills. Stay tuned, we'll be discussing that. Then at 4:50, it's Royal Roundup time. Royal biographer Angela Levin will be live here to give us the latest from behind the palace walls. On the menu, King Charles is expected to make the Easter service tomorrow, but will miss out on the annual lunch as he undergoes cancer treatment. Then at 5, it's My Difficult Conversation. Phil Baldwin, a man living with HIV, will be talking us through how he turned his illness into empowerment. He'll be joining me live in the studio. That's coming up in the next hour. Tell me what you think on everything we're discussing. Email gbviews@gbnews.com or tweet me at gbnews. Right, let's get started. Let's welcome again to my panel broadcaster and columnist Lizzie Cundy, and as a former advisor to Jeremy Corbyn, James Schneider. James, smile. You've been on holiday or living elsewhere in a nice hot country, getting a tan. How do you feel coming back to this country, hearing about this water disaster?
I mean,
The situation with privatised water is a national disgrace. I agree with, I think, basically every single word of your monologue. We've been taken for an enormous scam since 1989 with the privatisation. In that time, bills are up 40% in real terms. These companies were given away, public assets were given away. 70% of the shareholders are owned by overseas shareholders. They had no debts. Now they have £60 billion in debts. They've paid out £72 billion in dividends, and we were told that privatised water would be more efficient. It's not more efficient. We can see that with the pollution and with the bills going up, and that there'd be lots of investment. But actually there's 15% less investment than there was when it was under public ownership. And I think you're quite right that these companies are worthless and they should be taken back into the public hands. And if the shareholders and the executives don't like it, well, then we should have very, very serious legal challenges against them for the damage to our health, the damage to our natural resources. It is absolutely despicable. And the thing I find completely baffling is that this is so obvious. This is so common sense. You know, often you and I, we're on different sides of an argument. Here, we are absolutely in lockstep, and I think the vast majority of the British people would be in the same position, and yet neither of our main parties are remotely close to talking about it. They both want to carry on with slightly tweaked versions of the same system, hoping that Ofwat, this useless regulator, is going to somehow fix things.
Lizzie Cundy.
I'm absolutely appalled. I agree with everything you both have said. I mean, the boat race has been going since 1856. And think today of what they can't even celebrate and go in the water because they're scared of catching E. coli and goodness knows what. I think this is absolutely, it is horrific. And to think there's executives at 5 of 11 water companies who have said they've got this, you know, they've put their hands up, have still taken bonuses. This is an absolute disgrace. I'm calling it environmental vandalism, nothing more. And we have to do something about this.
But the thing is, it's going on. They're getting away with this quite quietly. And as James said, nobody's really talking about it. And I don't quite get why that is, why this is essential to life. Water is the one thing that we all need, irrespective of anything else. If we do not have water, we're in trouble. Yeah. So you could probably live on water for a little bit of time, but without water, you are dead. So and it is ultimately, it comes from the sky. You could collect your own water and create some sort of salination process or something in your own home and take the water from the sky. So I find it shocking that this isn't the top of the agenda.
It should be.
It should be.
In every sense of the word. But why haven't the government intervened? Why hasn't anything been done about this? I mean, it is absolutely... I haven't even got words. I'm so appalled of today. It is disgusting, Nana.
James, I want to ask you, because you've come from abroad, having had a nice time in another hot country, and come here with a tan, looking at us all as we look mealy-mouthed and ill, drinking the water. What is the view? What is the respect levels towards this country like abroad? What are they thinking from where you've come from? What country have you come from, can you say?
I've come from St Vincent in the Eastern Caribbean. And I was on a Vincentian radio show on Thursday and talking about the state of Britain and so on. And for them, it's a very real issue. Lots of Vincentians live here. It's important for people sending money back and people coming back after they've retired. And the state of Britain is not a good advertisement for ourselves. I mean, you can see that. I mean, luckily with my work, I get to travel quite a lot. And the Britain's status has really fallen as you hear these stories. Our infrastructure doesn't work, our public services don't work, and our rulers are basically laughing at us. I mean, the fact that these water company CEOs who are paid over £1 million can take bonuses while what they are doing... I mean, they should say, if they had any decency, they'd say, I'm forfeiting my pay because clearly I've done a very bad job as CEO.
Well, the shareholders don't think so because they're getting dividends.
Exactly, and that's why they don't want to give it up. And in 2023, £45 million in dividends to poorly working companies. Why? Why are we allowing this to happen? happen. We need to stop this and have a strong, independent, robust sort of audit in place to stop this. We cannot go on.
I don't even think
it's a national disaster.
But we don't need to do any of these things. We can see that they're robbing us blind. They're taking the absolute proverbial and they're poisoning us. And I'm thinking, where is the
and we've got a great opportunity to act because Thames Water's own shareholders don't want to put in any more money, which is threatening it with collapse, and they say, OK, well, we're going to put up the bills 40%. That is the perfect moment for Parliament to step in, and in a nationalisation, Parliament sets the share price. All of this stuff about we don't have money is nonsense, because what you do is you swap government bonds for the private shares, and the private share price should take into account the debt they've accumulated, the amount they've paid themselves, how they have damaged the infrastructure, and the pollution and the fines that they should be getting. So the price that we can get this company, which basically doesn't function as a private company, even though it's still making some people very rich, would be very low. So we actually have a real opportunity now. I was reading the newspaper this morning, and it said, you know, the government wants to get rid of a politically damaging nationalisation. I don't understand how it would be politically damaging.
Not at all.
I think if the government stepped in and said, right, this isn't working, we're going to take it over, we're not paying them very much, if any money. The whole Canard they always put forward, oh, you know, it's all owned by pension funds, it's our own pensions. 8.5% of the shares are owned by British pension funds, 70% are owned by overseas shareholders. It won't hurt us at all to take it forward. And I think the vast majority of people in the public would cheer.
Yeah.
And the people who live in areas outside of Thames Water and Anglia and so on and so forth would demand the same thing, and they'll be right to.
But we all need and deserve unpolluted water.
Yeah.
And sadly, who's going to be paying for this? It's a good
well, that's a good question.
Yeah.
And then they're expecting us to you're going to put the bills up by 40%. Listen, I'll tell you what, water companies, if you go and do that, and it's only England, by the way, because in Scotland they've had sense and in Wales, but if they're going to do that, we just won't pay. If nobody pays, then you're in trouble. If everyone refuses to pay, and I'm not suggesting that people should break the law, but the bottom line is this: you need to sort out the water. And listen, Rishi Sunak, if you're watching now, for God's sake, renationalise the water. We're going to be doing a debate about that in a few moments' time. So get in touch, gbviews@gbnews.com. Now, a Thames Water spokesperson said, we regard any untreated discharges as unacceptable, really, and we're committed to stopping them from being necessary. In what way? With the assistance of our regulators, storm discharges are closely linked to rainfall and groundwater conditions, and our region experienced above average rainfall for most of 2023, which saw an increase in the frequency and duration of the storm discharges from our sites compared to 2022. Yeah, this has been going on for years. You're with me, I'm Nana Akua. This is GB News on TV, online and on digital radio. Coming up, it's Royal Roundup time. Angela Levin will be here to give us the latest from behind the palace walls. On the menu, King Charles is expected to make an Easter service speech tomorrow, but will miss out on the annual lunch as he undergoes his cancer treatment. Then next, though, for the Great British Debate this hour, I'm asking, is it time to renationalise water? Thames Water has plunged into a financial crisis. Bosses are refusing to pay up the 40% hike, and they're expecting to put that in our bills. I've got a poll up right now asking you that very question. So what do you think? Is it time to renationalise water? Send me your thoughts. Email gbviews@gbnews.com or tweet me at GBNews.
Farage, Monday to Thursday from 7 p.m.
Serving police officers, showing that up to 20% of them are thinking about quitting the force and doing so within the next year or two. What on earth is going wrong? Problem, of course, is that those that go will be the experienced ones to be replaced by inexperienced ones. Kevin Hurley, former Detective Chief Superintendent at the Met Police, joins me from his home in Surrey. Kevin, this figure is shocking.
The terms and conditions have really dropped off under Theresa May's, what I would describe as an attack on the police service, where their pay has really dropped off, spending power down about 22% on what it once was. Worse still, the golden handcuffs, which were once the excellent police pension, have been taken away, and the pension is now much reduced. The other thing that's killing them is the constant media and activist battering for police officers. Off the back of that, one psychopath and the other, if you like, Tinder rapist, everybody now thinks the police are kind of all like that. What that means for the individual patrol officers, they're being given stick everywhere. For example, you know, their bosses left, right and centre are rolling over. Oh, yes, we're institutionally racist. What that means for a 25-year-old constable working in Balham High Street is everyone screaming at him, you're a racist pig. They get surrounded on the streets when they try and do a stop and search or an arrest. Add to that the fact that the criminal justice system is collapsing. They're tipping out the prisons with early releases, so because, of course, there's no prison space. Cases are taking years to get to court. They're getting derisory sentences because there's no room in the prisons. All of that's really demoralising for the police.
I'm Andrew Doyle. Join me at 7 o'clock every Sunday night for Free Speech Nation, the show where I tackle the week's biggest stories in politics and current affairs with the help of my two comedian panellists and a variety of special guests.
Free Speech Nation, Sunday nights from 7 on GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
Your weekend starts here with Friday Night Live with me, Mark Dolan, 8 till 9 on GB News. Big stories, big guests and big laughs as we get you ready for a cracking weekend. That's Friday Night Live with Mark Dolan, Fridays 8 till 9 on GB News. Bring your own drinks, the admission's free.
Every Sunday from 11, join Michael Portillo.
There will be topical discussion, looking at the week before and the week to come. So kick back and relax at 11 a.m. on Sundays on GB News with me, Michael Portillo. GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
Good afternoon, welcome on board. If you've just tuned in, welcome. This is GB News. I'm Nana Akua. Before the break there, we were discussing sewage spills reaching record highs. Let's have a quick look at what you've been saying. Guy says, Thatcher sold the utility companies because it was a bill UK PLC could not afford. Infrastructure, wage bill, pension pot, etc. Nationalise them. And how much will that put the UK debt up? Well, did you hear what James Schneider said? He's absolutely right. Only a small portion, about 8%, is made up of pensions. Simon says, regarding the Thames, are we a third country? It's blowing my mind. I know. Carol says, regarding the issue over the rivers being contaminated over sewage spills, the whole of the UK should refuse to pay our water bills until something is done about it. Disgrace. What on earth is going on? And Brian says, you're spot on. As someone who worked in the industry for over 25 years, in the 70s onwards, I'm appalled at what's happened to the industry. Corporate vultures have hijacked the industry. The old semi-public ownership worked well. The people were well qualified and dedicated. But it's a tragedy what has happened. It absolutely is. Thank you so much for your thoughts. Keep them coming, because we'll be discussing it, because it's time for the Great British Debate this hour. I'm asking, is it time to nationalise water? Earlier this week, Thames Water shareholders backed out of plans to inject $500 million into the embattled utility company, raising the prospect of a government bailout that could end up costing us, the taxpayer, billions. If we're going to pay for it, we might as well own it. If that wasn't bad enough, Thames Water chief executive has refused to rule out bill increases of up to 40% for customers. The funding crisis at Thames Water has left the company fighting for its future since last summer, and the latest episode has led to speculation that it's on the brink of emergency nationalisation. So, should it be nationalised? Well, to discuss this, lead campaigner of We Own It, John Busco. I didn't say that right, but John, you'll tell me. Former Conservative MP Neil Parish and senior lecturer in natural sciences at Bangor University, Dr. Christian Dunn. John Bosco, please, could you give me the correct pronunciation of your name? I apologise, and you can go first, John.
It's pronounced John Bosco Mwobo. It's Nigerian. And thank you so much, Nana, for having us here. I would obviously say that it's high time our water is taken into public ownership. There are 100 different reasons why that is the case, but I'll start with two. Number one is that we're the only country in the world that lacks the sense to run our water ourselves. In the United Kingdom, Scotland runs their water in public ownership. Wales runs their water through a company that's owned by the Welsh government. 90% of countries in the world run their water in public ownership. The second reason is that 7 out of 10 British voters, including a strong majority of the people watching this right now, including a strong majority of Conservative voters, want our water in public hands. Obviously, over the last few days, we have seen why that is the case. We've essentially turned a great British tradition, such as the boat race, into the floor is lava, where if you step into the water in any way, you might contract sepsis and kidney disease. So it's really, really important that we take this opportunity to reverse a kind of a global disgrace and take our water into public ownership.
Absolutely. OK, Neil Parish, what are your thoughts?
Yeah, Nana, I think it's too simple just to take it into public ownership, because that will not fix the problem. The Thames Tunnel, the big sewer under the Thames, will fix a lot of the problems with Thames Water. And then let's spend the money actually on getting it fixed, you know, the sewage outlets, the processing of the sewage, and let's actually do that. Actually spending billions on actually nationalising it won't cure it. I think Ofcom needs more powers, and I also think... Don't give
Ofcom anymore.
Yeah, sorry. Ofcom needs more powers. And also, like I said, I think the government, if it put money in, then it dictates exactly how that money is spent. And you see, if you look at it historically, the problem is when you got water nationalised, with the health service, education, police, defence, you'll find that it will not necessarily be the priority for spending. So I suggest leave it in private hands, but use the thumb screws on those companies to actually invest properly, give less money to their shareholders and to their executives, and actually get their ship in order. And that would be my solution, because I think the billions used just to nationalise it won't actually be the money needed to spend Better to spend the money on the infrastructure, leave it in private hands, but if they can't handle it, then eventually they will be nationalised, and by then the company's value will have dropped, so it will not cost the taxpayer as much. So I would suggest could put pressure on them, but leave it in private hands for the time being.
But Neil, I would argue that they are pretty worthless right now. They ain't worth much, and we could fine them to the nth degree of every penny they're worth. Then we don't have to pay them anything, because they'll be begging us to take back control of them. I think that's really the way I would do it. Or they're going to face environmental class actions from us lot because we're not happy. And they've also said they won't invest. They won't put the money in. So even though we think they will, they won't. Let's go to Dr. Christian Dunn.
Yeah, I can see both sides of the argument here. And to take the argument kind of beyond what Neil was saying as well, is that this issue is actually even more complicated than we're trying to talk about here, because the issue is that water companies are very much, at the forefront of this problem, without a doubt. But they are the tip of the iceberg when it comes to this problem, because this problem is actually a societal problem. It's how we have run our whole entire landscapes when it terms other industries as well are polluting, but also our construction industry as well is to blame here. There are so many issues here which has caused this problem. Yes, the water companies are a serious part of that, and they are most certainly to blame for a significant amount of it, but they are not the only contributors to this. And if we really want to address this problem, we really want to tackle the water pollution issue in our rivers and our coasts, then this has to go beyond the water companies. And that means even more investment from us as a country into this issue. It's even beyond whether they should be nationalised or whether they should be privatised. The problem is much greater than that.
Do you think? I just think the problem is quite straightforward in my eyes, that they've wasted our money. They've been given a profitable thing because it was not in debt when they got it, and they've taken everything out of it. They've rinsed it literally dry of anything and have not invested, and there's no guarantee they'll do it again. I think it just needs to go back into our hands, really. But thank you so much, lead campaigner of We Earn It, John Bosco Mwobo. Have I got it right? I hope so. Former Conservative MP Neil Parish, Senior Lecturer in Natural Sciences at Bangor University. Dr. Christian Dunn, thank you so much. Really good to get your input. That's very good to talk to you. Well, listen, in response, Thames Water have said, I'd like to reassure our customers that despite this announcement, it is business as usual for Thames Water. Our 8,000 staff remain committed to working with our partners in the supply chain to provide our services for the benefit of our customers, communities and the environment. Well, really, I don't mean to say that. I shouldn't be rude, because that is their statement. That's what they're saying. But listen, what do you think? GBViews at gbnews.com. Tweet me at GBNews. Don't go in the water. You're with me. I'm Nana Akua. This is GB News. We're live on TV, online and on digital radio. Coming up, we'll continue with the Great British Debate this hour. And I'm asking, is it time to renationalise water? You'll hear the thoughts of my panel, broadcaster and columnist Lizzie Cundy, also former advisor to Jeremy Corbyn, James Schneiser. And still to come, this week's difficult conversation I'm I'm joined by HIV survivor Phil Baldwin, who will talk about the impact the disease has had on his life. But first, let's get your latest news headlines with Polly Middlehurst.
The headlines this hour: a league table showing the nationalities of migrants with the highest crime rates has been proposed. A group of Tory MPs wants to see the statistics published annually for every offender convicted in England and Wales. They say the rules will help the Home Office impose stricter visa and deportation policies for certain countries. Former Immigration Minister Robert Jenrick is behind the plan and speaking exclusively to GB News. He said he wants the public to know about arrivals in the UK and the impact they're having on the country.
It is wrong that the government or other agencies hide statistics. I have laid an amendment to the upcoming criminal justice bill, which tackles one of these issues, and it says that the government must publish statistics on crimes and sentences by country of origin and by visa and asylum status.
Meanwhile, almost 5,000 small boats have crossed the English Channel so far this year, with Border Force officials taking almost 300 illegal migrants onto Dover after intercepting them just today. The Home Office says their French counterparts are facing growing dangers now as they attempt to intervene, with police there reporting they're experiencing growing levels of violence and disruption on the northern shores of France. Now, following the resignation of Sir Geoffrey Donaldson, the interim DUP leader Gavin Robinson has told colleagues today the party is not about any one individual, saying instead it exists to build a better and stronger Northern Ireland. Sir Geoffrey has been charged with historical sexual offences. The PSNI, the Peace Service in Northern Ireland, has since warned against speculation on social media, which may lead to the identification of any of the victims. It's understood Sir Geoffrey told DUP officers he'll strenuously contest the allegations against him. And if you're an ice cream fan, slightly tricky news. Classic Magnum ice creams are being recalled over fears they may contain metal. The manufacturer, Unilever, says the precautionary measure follows internal safety checks. Products sold in packs of 3, they're saying, are being recalled, with a warning linked to 5 batches, all with a best before date of the 25th of November. The company has apologised and says no other Magnum products are affected, so check your freezer. For the latest stories, do sign up to GB News Alerts. Scan the QR code on your screen or go to gbnews.com/alerts.
Thank you, Polly. It's just coming up to 35 minutes after 4 o'clock. I'm Nana Akua. Coming up, royal biographer Angela Levin will be live in the studio with the latest from behind the palace walls in my royal roundup. But next, we'll be continuing with the great British debate this hour. I'm asking, is it time to renationalise water? And I've got a poll up right now on X asking you that very question. You can send your thoughts, email gbviews@gbnews.com or tweet me at gbnews.
I'm Michelle Dewberry, and I'm not here to tell you what to think. I'd much rather hear what you have to say. So send in your opinions to gbviews@gbnews.com. Keep them clean, and you never know, I might read them out. With my panel here on Jubes & Co, we debate, we get stuck into the issues of the day on a show where all views are welcome, especially yours. GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
2024, a battleground year.
The year the nation decides.
As the parties gear up their campaigns for the next general election.
Who will be left standing when the British people make one of the biggest decisions of their lives?
Who will rise?
And who will fall?
Let's find out together.
For every moment, the highs, the lows, the twists and turns.
We'll be with you for every step of this journey.
In 2024, GB News is Britain's election channel.
This is GB News, Britain's news channel.
Can the Church of England not spend their money as they wish?
The Church of England
can do amazing things for this country and for the world, and I'm not sure why it's chosen to focus on this specific issue. You know, one of the causes that I've always thought the church was very good at were things called almshouses, which were basically houses that would be built on church estates for the needy. Not only did they want to spend £100 million on this fund, but they wanted to spend £1 billion on reparations as well. But why not spend 100 million or £1 billion on a new generation of almshouses, as opposed to just helping one group of people, black British people? Why not just help all people in need?
Alex?
Well, I just don't understand what the Church of England is trying to do. It's on its deathbed.
Congregations have reduced. I mean, deathbed is maybe a little bit...
Look, if we look over 20 years, it's dramatically lower than it used to be. And a lot of criticism from actual Christians come from the values that the Church of England are now propagating. And Justin Welby has a lot to answer for, because, you know, not only are we seeing in the news this mass conversion of illegal immigrants to a gay mass system in the UK, but now we're seeing them spending money... And as Albie actually pointed out correctly, in a way that doesn't really benefit broader society, it benefits a very small group of people. So I just don't know where it's going to end. This committee has also said £1 billion's not enough. It's 100 million, sorry.
Church commissioners are now hoping for a target of £1 billion.
I mean, it's woke nonsense, isn't it?
You could make the argument that this is charity. Justin Welby's job is to be a virtue signaller, is it not?
Charity discriminate? I mean, that's what he's saying. We're only going to give this to people from a specific skin colour or background. I don't think that's very Christian of them.
Good afternoon. If you just tuned in, welcome on board. This is GB News. See, Nana Nicey. Not where have you been? See, that's for another, maybe in the next quarter. But we're live on TV, online and on digital radio. I'm Nana Akua. Welcome. Right, so it's time for the Great British Debate this hour. And I'm asking, is it time to renationalise water? As earlier this week, Thames Water's shareholders backed out of plans to inject £500 million back into the embattled utility company. This, of course, raising the prospect of a government bailout. So they're not going to put the money in, but we, the taxpayer, because when you hear the word government, it means we, the taxpayer, will bail them out for billions, actually. If that wasn't bad enough, the chief executive has refused to rule out bill increases of up to 40% for the customers. So that's us again. So not only will they take money from us to the government coffers, they'll also charge us almost 40% more because of their rise in debts, because they've taken out so much in terms for their shareholders. The funding crisis at Thames Water has left the company fighting for its future since last summer, and the last episode has led to speculation that it's on the brink of emergency nationalisation. Bring it on. So for the Great British Debate this hour, I'm asking, is it time to renationalise the water? James Schneider, I'm going to start with you. You heard what Neil Parish said. What's your thoughts?
I mean, his argument was the definition of throwing good money after bad. Should we basically just take back this company which is failing, which is ours, and you run it in a sensible way where we don't have to pay shareholders, where we invest, where we know who's accountable. We know we can complain to the government if something is going wrong. They have to do something about it, or we vote them out. And instead his argument was, well, no, there'll be other priorities. You know, maybe people want to give money to something else. Well, it's not borne out by the figures. The levels of investment that we've had since water was privatised nearly 35 years ago is lower than it was beforehand. And the reason for that is they've been taking on all this debt, £60 billion of debt across the English privatised water companies, and they've paid out £72 billion to shareholders. The whole thing is a racket, and that's what they're trying to do to us again with Thames Water now, putting up our bills again, which has been happening since privatisation, and making us pay to bail them out. We should just take over the company. The idea that the regulator is going to fix it, Neil Parish, the MP, said, oh, well, you know, those executives, there should be thumb screws put on them to do something. I mean, does anybody really think that Ofwat is going to somehow develop the capacity capacity to make them do anything. I mean, they haven't for years. You said in your monologue, quite rightly, that the fines are part of their business model.
They know how much
they know.
Fined.
Oh, in the Ofwat statement that they sent into your programme, 300 million. It sounds like a lot.
Nothing.
It sounds like a lot of money. But when you say, oh, they paid out 72 billion pounds to shareholders,
That's
300 million, 72 billion,
exactly.
and that's how you can see it.
Yeah,
I mean, forget what Neil Parish said. He looked like he'd been swimming in his own river. I don't know what was on his eye. Sorry. I mean, what a sad time we live in when we can't even, you know, put our feet in the water or let. You know, my friend's dog ran in the Thames and it was really poorly. You can't even let your dog run in the water. What has happened to our country? We have to take it back. I'm sorry, they've wasted our money. They've not invested. They don't care. They don't care, Nana. That is just it's an absolute despicable mess, and it's real troubled waters in every sense of the word. It's in a real financial mess, more than 15 billion in debt, and it's shareholders refusing to deliver a 500 million lifeline. Yeah. I mean, we're in a big mess now.
We are in a mess. We're in a very watery mess. And Neil Parish, yes, I hope your eye gets better. We don't really think you went in the water. You wouldn't be that silly. Right, let's see what my panel, that's their thoughts. But what are yours? GB Views on gbnews.com. Now, this show is nothing without you and your views. Let's welcome our great British voices, their opportunity to be on the show and tell us what they think about the topics we're discussing. Where should we go? Should we go to Bristol? Oh, yeah. Like I mentioned it. There's no map. No, Lee Harris in Bristol. What do you think about this?
Hi, Nana. I can't believe I'm saying this, but I really do sympathise with people who think it might be time to nationalise the water companies.
No.
And their arguments are very convincing, but there is a but. We all know it's going to be biblically expensive. The one thing that we can agree on is the way Thames Water is being run. It is utterly criminal. Your excellent monologue, Nana, was spot on. Not only is this a failure of Thames Water, but the regulators are also to blame. You know, the thing that really grinds my gears is shareholders taking billions out of the water companies over the past 2 decades and left it with eye-watering debts, as you've just discussed, terrible infrastructure and higher bills for people unfortunate to live in the catchment area. And as you said, customers could be facing up to a 40% increase in their bills. And it's not like they can go to another company if they're annoyed. You know, and all this while I think they paid out £3.7 million worth of bonuses, benefits and incentives to company executives. I'm devastated, Nana. These useless regulators and the bosses at Thames Water are making me sound like a bit of a lefty on this issue. It feels wrong.
But you're not really, are you? Because the right wing supposedly would not call for nationalisation, so we sound like the lefties. And you sound like a raving loony. Thank you very much, Lee Harris.
I think they should let it fail, Nana.
Lee Harris, thank you very much. That's brilliant, Lee Harris in Bristol. Well, lots of you have been getting in touch with your views. Margaret says, I'm not surprised we have problems with water in the country. We have spent years spending money to help other countries for water aid. Too right. Gary says, nothing to do with the rest of the country. Let Cairn, Thames, Water and London pay for the issue. And David says, I'm definitely not a socialist, but I believe it's now time to nationalise all utility companies, water, gas and electric. I'm with you. We are being ripped off. It's time our political parties come together and sort it out. I'm with you. Right now, though, this is GB News. We're live on TV, online and on digital radio. Next up, we'll be discussing in the Great British Debate, should we have a migrant crime league table? That's in the next hour. But next, royal biographer Angela Levin will be live to talk about what's going on behind the palace walls. And it's been a busy week. Stay tuned.
Hello there, welcome to your latest GB News weather forecast from the Met Office. Well, as we go through the rest of this Easter weekend, we will see some further sunshine, but there is still some rain in the forecast, all courtesy of areas of low pressure which are going to hang around across the British Isles as we go through the coming days. So as we end Saturday, for many actually, we will see clearing skies, but there will be some heavy showers still down towards the southwest of England, and they will spread their way towards southwest Wales and eventually into Northern Ireland towards the end of the night. And at the same time, some misty low cloud will just begin to spill in from the North Sea. But where we do see the clearest of the skies, we will see a touch of frost as we start Easter Day. But we will see plenty of sunshine first thing across many central parts. But this misty low cloud will spill its way further westwards as we go through the course of the day. So come the afternoon, Many parts of England and Wales will see plenty of cloud, a few spits and spots of rain. So the best of the brightness will be across Scotland and Northern Ireland, but here we'll continue the risk of a few showers. Temperature-wise, in the sunshine, reaching around 14 or 15 degrees. And then looking ahead to Easter Monday, a rather wet picture for many parts of England and Wales, some heavy rain in places. Scotland and Northern Ireland drier with some brightness here, but certainly under that rain, not feeling too great. And unfortunately, the unsettled conditions do look like they will continue as we head towards the middle of the week.
I think the most exciting bit for me is talking to people.
People who I think are ignored often by the major news channels. We're going to give news they want to hear. There's a voice there that needs to be heard. I think there's a chance here for a diversity of opinion to be expressed, which you don't find elsewhere. It's really exciting.
We don't hold back. We're free to say how decisions that are taken here
affect us all around the country. Only on GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
GB News is the home of free speech. We were created to champion it, and we deliver it day in, day out.
Free speech allows us all to explore and debate openly the issues most important to us, our families, and of course, the British people.
Having challenging conversations to enlighten each other.
Which is why we hear all sides of the argument.
We are the People's Channel.
We will always stand by the freedom to express yourself.
On TV, radio, and online.
This is GB News,
Britain's news channel.
Join me, Camilla Tominey, every Sunday at 9:30 when I'll be interviewing the key players in British politics and taking them to task.
This report basically says that he's not fit to stand trial.
With an upcoming election looming over Westminster, now is the time for clear, honest answers.
I agree.
And that's precisely what I'll get.
Is he indecisive? Incompetent?
That's the Camilla Tominey Show at 9:30 every Sunday on GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's election channel.
Good afternoon, 48 minutes after 4 o'clock. If you've just tuned in, welcome on board. This is GB News. We are the People's Channel. I'm Nana Akua, and there's always something going on in the royal household, and this week has been no different. Each Saturday, I like to give you a rundown, and who'd better to do so than royal biographer Angela Levin. Right, Angela, you take me through this, start me from the top. There's a lot going on.
Yes. Well, Thursday was the Maundy event, and King Charles was very, very upset he couldn't make it. He made a speech about how he longed to be there, but Camilla did it for him. It's the first time a Queen Consort has done that ever, so it's quite an important thing. She did it beautifully. She did it so warmly, giving 75 men and 75 women little tiny purses with silver money specially made for it. You know, if they are, they've worked in the army and certain things, and they're older and find life difficult, this is a special prayer. And she was chatting away, you know, she had, it's not easy to talk to one person after another for about 2-3 minutes, you know, but she was smiling, and she's doing the most brilliant job. If you look back at 30 years when everyone said she was going to ruin the monarchy and it would fall apart, and here she is holding it up, you know, with both hands and working very hard. What we hope is to see King Charles tomorrow, that he's the services in Windsor, and he hopes to walk down the hill there on his own with Camilla, and then back up afterwards, which is quite a big thing to do. I think it was a bit dodgy for the palace to say this is definitely going to be there, because, you know, you can wake up feeling really unwell, but hopefully he will make it, and it will be a step forward. He can't sit next to everyone. He'll be on his own. And he needs to be very careful. I thought the photograph of him talking about the Maundy event, he didn't look very well. But then you don't look very well when you're in such a situation. But he's very determined, and I hope that it works very well for him. And he'll be very pleased. It will be a step forward.
What about the late Duke of Edinburgh? The statue in Cambridge is going to be knocked down, right?
Yes. Well, if you saw the statue, you would absolutely. It's terrible. It cost £150,000 in bronze.
Statue.
And it's 14 feet high. but he doesn't have a face. He looks like a ghost, or that a piece of material has run over his face. It was put up without any agreement in 1914, and they've now 2014, sorry, and they now want to get rid of it because the council says they've never seen anything so terrible.
So it's only been up for what, 9 years, not even 10 years.
Yeah,
it's coming down.
But the person who made it, he said, yes, it was me originally, and now he says, I don't know what you're talking about. I haven't done it.
I don't think I'd help to that either.
He doesn't want any blame for it. I mean, it is absolutely hideous. You would never know who it was. You'd think it was somebody out of a terrible film, like... so, you know,
like
that's...
Edward Scissorhands or something like that.
Yes, but he doesn't agree that he did it. But it's a shame, though, and there's no comment that they will put something in its place, and I think they jolly well should. He'd been looking after Cambridge universities for 36 years and spent a lot of time doing that.
If you're watching on TV, the statue is up now. If you're listening on radio, it's this ghastly, ghostly white face with which appear to be a graduation hat and then some robe, the robe. But it's in blue and yellow stripes, thick stripes down. It's creepy.
It is very creepy. That's it. It's just out of a horror movie.
Yeah.
But why did it go up like that?
Well,
why did they like that face? They could have changed the face afterwards, couldn't they?
At least put a face on it. But the thing is, the person who created that has denied all knowledge.
Yes, that's right. I don't blame him, actually. I don't blame him.
No, we haven't heard from the Dastardly duo at all for a while. What's going on with Harry and Meghan?
Well, what I think is very strange about Harry, and quite annoying, is that he hasn't tried to go to Congo to stop the raping and fighting that's going on there.
But there's no indication that is he aware of it? And is this
since 2010,
this is the charity that would...
It's a charity. It's the African parks, and they go over 49.4 million acres, right? So it's huge. They go from country to country, and the people who are running it and working there are raping people and fighting with them.
Now, this was in a report. This wasn't in an article.
Yes.
I mean, obviously, I can't verify that. That's just what has been reported.
Yes. Harry was very involved. He was a director, and then he went on the board.
But there's no indication that he's aware of what was going on, though. There's no...
Well, since 2010, he's been aware because he's been on the board of management. So there's been complaints about that, of what's been going on. But he hasn't done anything that's come out in the press, let's put it that way. And I think that he should. It's a responsibility.
So what are you suggesting, that he should detach himself from that charity?
Well, he either should detach himself from the charity, or he should be trying to make something happen about the aggression and things like that.
We don't know that he's not doing that, though. He could well be behind the scenes.
Well, it seems people are still complaining that he's not doing anything to help. So I don't know what he's doing, but it's nothing that is come into the press, and he would be proud of that if he was doing something and he sorted it out. Yeah. And he'd be a good man to try and do that, because he's very good with dealing with people of those sort of situations. The other thing,
he needs to disassociate himself from it swiftly, I suggest.
Yes, he should do, but he should have done that a few years ago. And Meghan, of course, I find it very difficult that she only had one page that came out again of her new website, but she hasn't got the staff, and she wants to make now animal food and stuff as well.
Animal food, for goodness sake. Listen, thank you very much. The brilliant Angela Levin. Still to come, my Great British Debate. I'm asking, should we have Migrant crime league tables? That's next up, though, my difficult conversation. That's on the way.
Looks like things are heating up. Boxed boilers, sponsors of weather on GB News.
Hello there, welcome to your latest GB News weather forecast from the Met Office. As we go through the rest of this Easter weekend, we will see some further sunshine, but there is still some rain in the forecast, all courtesy of areas of low pressure which are going to hang around across the British Isles as we go through the coming days. So as we end Saturday, for many actually we will see clearing skies, but there will be some heavy showers still down towards the southwest of England, and they will spread their way towards southwest Wales and eventually into Northern Ireland towards the end of the night. And at the same time, some misty low cloud will just begin to spill in from the North Sea. But where we do see the clearest of the skies, we will see a touch of frost as we start Easter Day. But we will see plenty of sunshine first thing across many central parts, but this misty low cloud will spill its way further westwards as we go through the course of the day. So come the afternoon, many parts of England and Wales will see plenty of cloud, a few spits and spots of rain. So the best of the brightness will be across Scotland and Northern Ireland, but here we'll continue the risk of a few showers. Temperature-wise, in the sunshine, reaching around 14 or 15 degrees. And then looking ahead to Easter Monday, a rather wet picture for many parts of England and Wales, some heavy rain in places. Scotland and Northern Ireland drier with some brightness here, but certainly under that rain, not feeling too great. And unfortunately, the unsettled conditions do look like they will continue as we head towards the middle of the week.
That warm feeling inside from Boxed Boilers, sponsors of weather on GB News.
Well, listen, stay tuned because up next it's this week's difficult conversation. I'll be speaking to a man living with HIV about how he's used his illness to empower others. You won't want to miss that. Also, we'll be discussing the current migrant crisis and whether league tables will actually be a good idea. Keep your thoughts coming, GBViews at gbnews.com or tweet me at GBNews. But next up, it's time to get an update with your news from Polly Middlehurst.
I'm Nigel Farage, and this is GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
I'm Michelle Dewberry, and I'm not here to tell you what to think. I'd much rather hear what you have to say. So, send in your opinions to gbviews at gbnews.com. Keep them clean, and you never know, I might read them out. With my panel here on Jubes & Co, we debate, we get stuck into the issues of the day on a show where all views are welcome, especially yours. GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
2024, a battleground year.
The year the nation decides.
As the parties gear up their campaigns for the next general election.
Who will be left standing when the British people make one of the biggest decisions of their lives?
Who will rise?
And who will fall?
Let's find out together.
For every moment, the highs, the lows, the twists and turns.
We'll be with you for every step of this journey.
In 2024, GB News is Britain's election channel.
2024, a battleground year.
The year the nation decides.
As the parties gear up their campaigns for the next general election.
Who will be left standing when the British people make one of the biggest decisions of their lives?
Who will rise?
And who will fall?
Let's find out together.
For every moment, the highs, the lows, the twists and turns.
We'll be with you for every step of this journey.
In 2024, GB News is Britain's election channel.
Good afternoon, Britain.
Good afternoon, Britain.
Weekdays from midday, we bring you the most compelling stories from across the United Kingdom.
And why it matters to you. From your doorstep to our inbox.
That's right, we want to hear from you. Good afternoon, Britain. Only on GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
GB News is the home of free speech. We were created to champion it, and we deliver it day in, day out.
Free speech allows us all to explore and debate openly the issues most important to us, our families, and of course, the British people.
Having challenging conversations to enlighten each other.
Which is why we hear all sides of the argument.
We are the People's Channel.
We will always stand by the freedom to express yourself.
On TV, radio and online.
This is GB News,
Britain's news channel.
Every Sunday from 11, join Michael Portillo.
There'll be topical discussion, looking at the week before and the week to come. So kick back and relax at 11 a.m. on Sundays on GB News with me, Michael Portillo. GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
I'm Christopher Hope. This is GB News, Britain's election channel.
Good afternoon. It's just coming up to 5 o'clock. This is GB News on TV, online and on digital radio. I'm Nana Akua. And for the next hour, me and my panel will be taking on some of the big topics hitting the headlines right now. This show is all about opinion. It's mine, it's theirs, and of course it's yours. We'll be debating, discussing, and at times we will disagree, but no one will be cancelled. So joining me today is broadcaster and columnist Lizzie Cundy, and also former advisor to Jeremy Corbyn, James Schneider. Coming up, my difficult conversation. I'll be speaking to a man who's living with HIV. After enduring years of bullying and hostility over his sexuality, he's utilised his own experience to help others. Then, for the Great British Debate this hour, I'm asking, should we have a Migrant Crime League table? At the end of the hour, it's my quick-fire quiz where I test my panel on some of the other stories that are hitting the headlines. But before we get started, let's get your latest news.
Nana, thank you very much indeed, and good evening to you. Well, the top story from the GB Newsroom today is that the nationalities of migrants who commit crimes could be posted on a league table, with ministers saying it would give the government more power to tighten immigration laws. A group of Tory MPs wants to see statistics on every offender convicted in England and Wales published every year. They say the rules will help the Home Office impose stricter visa and deportation policies for individuals from certain countries. The former Immigration Minister, Robert Jenrick, is behind the plan. Speaking exclusively to GB News, he said he wants the public to know what impact arrivals to the UK are having on the country.
I want the most honest and transparent debate about immigration, legal or illegal, that we can possibly have. And it is wrong that the government or other agencies hide statistics. I have laid an amendment to the upcoming criminal justice bill, which tackles one of these issues, and it says that the government must publish statistics on crimes and sentences by country of origin and by visa and asylum status. I think that the public want to know who's coming into our country and what the economic, the fiscal and the societal impact of immigration is.
Robert Jenrick speaking there. Well, almost 5,000 small boats have crossed the English Channel so far this year, with Border Force officials escorting almost 300 illegal migrants onto Dover after intercepting them today. The Home Office says their French counterparts are facing growing dangers in their efforts to intervene as well. French police say they're experiencing increasing levels of violence and disruption on the northern beaches of France. The interim DUP leader, Gavin Robinson, has told colleagues the party is not about any one individual, saying instead it exists to build a better and stronger Northern Ireland. It follows the resignation of Sir Geoffrey Donaldson, who's been charged with historical sex offences. The Police Service of Northern Ireland has since warned against any speculation on social media, saying anything that leads to the identification of victims is a crime and will be treated as such. It's understood Sir Geoffrey's told DUP officers he will strongly contest the allegations against him. Counter-terrorism police are investigating the stabbing of an exiled Iranian journalist in southwest London. Pouria Zerati, who was targeted right outside his home in Wimbledon, is said to be in a stable condition after suffering an injury to his leg. The London-based television channel Iran International says the attack follows Tehran's plot to kill two of its presenters in 2022. It's calling for stronger action against the regime. Police say they're keeping an open mind regarding any motive. Two security sources have accused Israel of striking a car carrying UN observers in southern Lebanon. The United Nations peacekeeping mission says 4 people were injured. The Israeli military has denied any involvement. Meanwhile, further aid drops have been carried out over Gaza. The US military says it's conducted 18 such missions this month alone. Yesterday, we know the UK dropped more than 10 tonnes of food and humanitarian supplies, including rice, flour, tinned goods and water, all to help civilians affected by the ongoing conflict. Now, in the Netherlands, a hostage situation in a nightclub has ended peacefully. Police arrested a man who was wearing a balaclava after he walked out of the venue, witnesses saying he came out with his hands in the air. Several people were held in the club, but the authorities confirm they've all now been released. Here at home, household budgets are about to be hit with bigger bills. A range of services and products, including broadband and mobile, The TV licence and stamps are all going up from Monday. The average annual council tax bill is also increasing by £106, and water and sewerage charges in England and Wales are rising by £27 a year. It isn't all bad news, though. National insurance is going down, along with energy bills falling to their lowest in 2 years. Both the Cambridge men and women have won the historic boat race on the Thames. The rowers had to ignore tradition, though. They were warned not to jump into the water after winning their events because of high levels of E. coli detected in the river. They were also advised to cover cuts with waterproof plasters and try to avoid accidentally swallowing river water. The men claimed their 5th trophy in 6 years, while the women cruised to a 7th straight victory. And just lastly, classic Magnum ice creams are being recalled over fears they may contain metal. The manufacturer, Unilever, says the precautionary measure follows internal safety checks. Products sold in packs of 3 are being recalled, with a warning linked to 5 batches, all with a best before date of the 25th of November. The company has apologised and says no other Magnum products are affected. That's the news. For the latest stories, do sign up to GB News Alerts. Scan the QR code on your screen or go to gbnews.com/alerts.
Thank you, Polly. It's just coming up to 7 minutes after 5 o'clock. This is GB News on TV, online and on digital radio. I'm Nana Akua. Coming up, my difficult conversation today. I was speaking to a man living with HIV after enduring years of bullying and hostility over his sexuality. He now uses his own experience to help others and has become a champion for LGBTQ+ rights. Then, for the Great British Debate this hour, I'm asking, should we have a migrant crime league table? The former immigration minister wants statistics showing the nationalities of migrant groups with the highest crime rates to be published annually.
I think that the public want to know who's coming into our country and what the economic, the fiscal and the societal impact of immigration is.
I thought we had that already. And then in clickbait, one of the UK's largest school photo firms apologises to parents after it offered families the option of class pictures. As ever, you can get in touch, email gbnews@gbnews.com or tweet me at gbnews. Right, well, stay tuned for all of that. That is on the way. But now it's time for this week's difficult conversation. Today, I'm joined by an HIV survivor. His journey encapsulates resilience and empowerment enduring the hostile climate of Section 28 during schooling. He faced bullying for his sexuality and yet emerged as an out and proud individual. After a successful academic pursuit at Oxford University, he embarked on a career in law, only to confront a daunting diagnosis of HIV and hepatitis C in 2010. Struggling with acceptance amid a demanding career, he eventually found liberation through disclosure to both his employer and his family. And I'm pleased to say I'm joined in the studio by HIV survivor Phil Baldwin. Phil, thank you so much for joining me.
Thank you very much for having me here today. And you've already touched on some aspects of my story there. I was diagnosed with HIV when I was 24 years old over my lunch break from work.
Wow.
And at the time, that came as a complete shock. It took me a number of years to come to terms with that diagnosis.
Can I take you back, Phil, then, to why you decided to get tested? So we go back, you know, obviously I've covered it briefly, but people would want to know, you know, why did you go in and have a test? Not that there's anything wrong with doing that, but were you worried or concerned?
I first had a sexual health screen when I was 17, and that must have been just after the turn of the millennium. And the nurse at the time told me that as a gay or bi man, I should be getting tested every 6 months. And that was something that I continued, and it's really I cannot encourage people more to get tested, because they're knowing your status, not just around HIV but around other STIs, is so important. I was tested for all bloodborne viruses and STIs in April 2009 and actually tested negative. Then in January 2010, I tested negative for HIV, and then 5 days later for hepatitis C.
Wow. So this test was just something that you normally do, that you've learned to do since the age of 17, and then you just went in your lunch break, I understand, to do the test.
I went to the clinic, and within half an hour, they had done an on-the-spot test, and it had come back positive. I was ushered into a side room, and the nurse sat me down and told me that I was living with HIV. It actually came as a complete shock to me. I'd just started working as a lawyer in the city about 5 months earlier. It had been one of the periods in my life between April 2009 and January 2010 where I'd actually had very few sexual partners. So I really wasn't expecting this at all. There's very little that I can remember from that initial conversation with the nurse, except that she told me HIV is no longer a death sentence. I left the STI clinic, and fortunately, where I live is very close to the STI clinic, and I just went home, lay on my sofa in a fetal position and cried. About 45 minutes to an hour later, I noticed that my work BlackBerry was ringing, and I realised I had to be back in the office. So I headed back to work. But the moment I walked through the doors of my office, I felt I had to project a facade. I didn't feel comfortable telling my fellow colleagues. And it took about two and a half years before I had the confidence to tell my fellow colleagues, and ultimately my parents as well. Telling my parents was one of the hardest things. And you mentioned earlier how I came out in a hostile environment when I was at school, and really telling my parents about my HIV diagnosis, it was like coming out a second time. So the HIV diagnosis, it effectively put me back in the closet. So I'd been in the closet as a teenager for being gay, and then the HIV diagnosis effectively put me back in the closet, but this time around living with HIV. So I had to go through that entire process.
It's been very difficult.
Yes.
And how are you faring now? Because they've got some incredible drugs these days, as the nurse said to you, that the HIV is not really the death sentence it was. I can remember the Tombstone ads, the scariness. At the time, I was doing hospital radio and going into the Chelsea and Westminster, the Lord Wigram ward, which was the HIV ward, and people were just dying. Now, the treatment has changed, hasn't it?
So even since 2010, there have been incredible medical advances. So it was actually in 1996 that they introduced antiretroviral treatments, and those allow people living with HIV to live a normal lifespan. Since 1996, they've been improved dramatically. I now only take 1 pill a day. I have no side effects, and because I'm on effective treatment with an undetectable viral load, it also means that I can't pass the virus on to other people.
Fantastic, isn't it? That's really fantastic. That's a real step, and that literally must have changed your life. So now you spend your time campaigning. Tell me briefly about your campaigning.
I campaign across a whole range of issues. HIV is still one of the issues that I discuss the most. Another incredible development that we've had is pre-exposure prophylaxis. So that emerged around 2015, and that's a pill which can be taken daily or on demand, and by an HIV negative person, and it means that they cannot contract HIV.
Wow.
So that's a new development that we've had as well. It was around 2016 that people started talking about undetectable equals untransmittable, that someone living with HIV can't pass the virus on. And for me, that was just such a huge burden lifted from my shoulders, because prior to that, I had always been really worried that I might pass my HIV on to a sexual partner. So that's why testing is so important, because if you get tested, you can get ineffective treatment, and then you can't pass the virus on. And that's how we're going to end HIV.
Listen, Phil, it's really good to talk to you. Have you got a Twitter or somewhere where people can follow you or get in touch? Do you have a social media? Do you talk to people on social media?
So it's at Philip C. Baldwin on Twitter, Instagram and TikTok. I should have referred to Twitter as X.
Everyone does it. We all call it Twitter. Phil, it's really good to talk to you. Thank you so much for sharing your incredible story, and keep up all the great work.
Thank you very much. Thank you.
Thank you. That, of course, is Philip Baldwin. He's living with HIV. Coming up now, my panel. We're going head-to-head in the quickfire quiz, but next it's time for the Great British Debate this hour, and I'm asking, should we have a Migrant Crime League table? You're with me, I'm Nana Akua. This is GB News. We're live on TV, online and on digital radio.
This is GB News, Britain's news channel.
Is the brand of toothpaste super important here, or is it more about the toothbrush? Because I was told a long time ago by my dentist, electric toothbrush, Pip, that is the way to go.
You're exactly right. I mean, the action of mechanically removing plaque, so using a brush, is much more effective than the brand of toothpaste itself. But in terms of the ingredient in toothpaste that we're looking for, it's something called fluoride. And fluoride is essential to help remineralize and strengthen our teeth. It's really important to use a toothpaste with fluoride. And in terms of brushing, using an electric toothbrush is just much easier. You know, you're brushing your teeth first thing in the morning, last thing at night. You're going to be a bit tired in those times. So using an electric toothbrush, you just hold it against your tooth and gum and it does all the work for you. So it's just much easier in my opinion.
But you have to use your electric toothbrush properly.
You're exactly right. Yeah, there is a technique of actually brushing your teeth, although it sounds really simple. With an electric toothbrush, you have to hold it against the tooth and the gum. Ideally, you want a pressure sensor in that toothbrush so you know exactly when you're pressing too hard. But if you're using a manual toothbrush, you need to move it around and small circular motions. But actually what I see is people who use manual toothbrushes, they tend to over scrub and over brush, which can actually lead to gum recession and your enamel thinning long term.
Sometimes I will get up in the morning and I will have breakfast and then I'll brush my teeth. Is that wrong?
Unfortunately, that's wrong. So the best time to brush your teeth is first thing in the morning, as soon as you wake up. If you're brushing after you eat and after breakfast, you're brushing your teeth in that weakened acidic state. So your teeth are actually under attack and they're much more vulnerable.
Join me, Camilla Tominey, every Sunday at 9:30 when I'll be interviewing the key players in British politics and taking them to task.
This report basically says that he's not fit to stand trial.
With an upcoming election looming over Westminster, now is the time for clear, honest answers.
I agree.
And that's precisely what I'll get.
Is he indecisive? Incompetent?
That's the Camilla Tominey Show at 9:30 every Sunday on GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's election channel.
2024, a battleground year.
The year the nation decides.
As the parties gear up their campaigns for the next general election.
Who will be left standing when the British people make one of the biggest decisions of their lives?
Who will rise?
And who will fall?
Let's find out together.
For every moment, the highs, the lows, the twists and turns.
We'll be with you for every step of this journey.
In 2024, GB News is Britain's election channel.
Welcome, if you've just tuned in, welcome on board. I'm Nana Akua. Don't go anywhere, we've got still loads to come on the show. It's just coming up to 21 minutes after 5 o'clock. This is GB News. It's time for our Great British Debate this hour, and I'm asking, should we have migrant crime league tables? Now, the former Immigration Minister Robert Jenrick wants statistics showing the nationalities of migrant groups with the highest crime rates to be published annually. Now, this is what he had to say on GB News yesterday.
I want the most honest and transparent debate about immigration, legal or illegal, that we can possibly have. And it is wrong that the government or other agencies hide statistics. I have laid an amendment to the upcoming criminal justice bill, which tackles one of these issues, and it says that the government must publish statistics on crimes and sentences by country of origin and by visa and asylum status. I think that the public want to know who's coming into our country and what the economic, the fiscal and the societal impact of immigration is.
Well, if implemented, these new rules could allow the Home Office to have stricter visa checks and deportation policies. So for the Great British Debate this hour, I'm asking, should we have migrant crime league tables? Well, joining me now is barrister and writer Stephen Barrett, political commentator Connor Tomlinson, and also former Labour aide Stella Secondou. I didn't say that right, but I just guessed it. OK, I'm going to start with you, Steve. Can we start, Stephen? Can we start with this legally? Are there any legal issues to this?
No, and I want to be very clear about this. Within the current legal framework, there is no reason I can see why the government cannot publish this information if people want it. Under the current Freedom of Information Act, Section 13, there's a power that to ask for payment if it causes an undue expense to the government to release it. And the reason I raise that is I know that GB News offered to pay. And if you offer to pay, well, then it seems perfectly reasonable under the current existing legal framework that the government simply releases this information to GB News and you cover the government's, well, all of our costs. But if you want to do it, I don't see that there's any legal bar to so do it. I'd also add, Nana, that we are becoming a very infantilized society. And are we truly sitting here discussing whether or not we should be told the truth or lied to? Is that really what we're saying? I either will be told what's happening or we'll just pretend it isn't. I mean, that's just a personal political position. If you want to live in a society which doesn't tell you anything at all and simply pretends everything is rosy, well, that's up to you. But I used to live in a grown-up society where people were told the truth and then we argued about it. Of course we did. That's political debate, and I won't engage in what the solutions are. But we were at least told the truth.
It does strike me that if you wanted to publish it, they should be doing that sort of thing anyway. They should know that anyway. Not sure how that helps with the whole migrant situation. Stella, if you could pronounce your surname for me.
Sandekidu. Get ready to be blackpilled, Nana, now. Look, I'm going to tell you what's actually going on there, right? Robert Jennings is trying to suggest that there is some kind of conspiracy where the government has some data that they're not releasing. Really what is going on is they're either not gathering this data or nobody has asked for them or they're not relevant, because if this data exists, then you can just FOI them, or he could very easily just submit a written question to the relevant minister and he could get this data himself. Or indeed, when he was immigration minister, which remember used to be his brief, he could have done that job already. But now he's in the backbenches, he's no longer a minister. He has decided that he wants to run to be the leader of the Conservative Party. So he needs to find a red meat policy to show that he's really as right-wing as the next best candidate, and that all along he was supporting all of these things that, in Robert Jennings' opinion, is going to lead the next Conservative leadership. But what he's actually suggesting, there's a discrepancy between what he's saying he's going to do and what the amendment actually achieves, which I have to clarify once again. This is just an amendment on the criminal justice bill. It's probably not even going to be voted on. So as far as I'm concerned, this is all just tricks to show that he is one thing or another. No, what the policy is just that they're going to have a league table showing which nationalities have committed the most crimes or whatever, which is very discriminatory in my opinion, because what you're saying is, okay, so if we had a lot of Italians last year who committed rapes, then that means that the Italians that are going to apply for a visa next year are more likely to be rapists themselves, so we need to be extra careful when we're considering their visa applications. So this is this is what he's saying is going to happen. He said we're going to apply more scrutiny to the nationalities who have committed more crimes in previous years. So you're going to punish, basically, people because they happen to come from the same place as people who have committed crimes.
Well, OK. I mean, that is a way of looking at it. I see that. But there is a logic to it, but it's slightly illogical as well. Connor?
Yeah, I'm not sure whether your last speaker, Nana, is dishonest or just perhaps places too much faith in the institutions and their ability to report this data, because the Office for National Statistics declared it does not want to report data on crime committed per ethnicity because some racists were using this to suggest that all black people were committing crimes. Neil O'Brien, an MP, put in a request to, I believe it was the Department for Work and Pensions, asking for tax contributions by national origin. And they said, we're no longer going to collect this data. By the by, the Netherlands actually released data on this a little while ago, and it found that immigrants from China, East Asia, and Europe were net tax contributors, whereas immigrants from Turkey, the Middle East and North Africa and Sub-Saharan Africa were not tax contributors. So basically, they're not going to collect and publish this data because it looks bad for the narrative. Now, I think there is a moral duty to publish this data because we know there are countries and cultures which do not have the same universal respect for human life that historically Christian English culture does. They do not have a sense of fair play or reciprocity. They do not see women and children's well-being as good unto itself. They see it as instrumental to the pleasure and power of the most violent men in civilization. And so I think we should record that, as recently the Danes have done, and say, yes, we should be discriminatory to people from those cultures to protect the native Brits and the immigrants who have already peacefully assimilated here.
Well, I think the assumption that discrimination is a bad thing every time it's used is not actually... We always screen and discriminate in some way. Sometimes it can work negatively. Sometimes it needs to be done. Stephen, I noticed you raising your eyebrows, or one eyebrow at least, but instead of us talking. Why? What were you thinking?
Well, I think it's important to note that as they are refusing to release this data, saying that it would cost too much to do so. So to pretend that it can happen is, I think, not terribly helpful. And I'm very conscious of an argument that keeps cropping up in public life, which is to say, first of all, this isn't happening. And then to say, oh, and by the way, it's a good thing, which was, I think, the experience of listening to the very no doubt learned lady talk. We need to be truthful about what is going on and what decisions we're making in order to make informed decisions. It is your personal political opinion whether you want this data released or not. It's not terribly helpful to tie all that up in emotion and shame and just a lot of the sort of the infantile approach we've had to these discussions and debates. Do we want this data released? If not, why not? I mean, racist people breathe oxygen. I am not going to stop breathing oxygen because racist people do. So we do need to limit guilt by association. I mean, it's got completely out of hand. And you know, of course, racist people will do awful racist things. Have we got a plague of racist people at the moment? Or have we got an awful trouble with crime at the moment? Which one have we got a trouble with? Which policy do we want to fix? What do we want to do to fix it? But ultimately, I think, Nana, the point I do want to make is that we are not infants. So we keep being treated like infants, but I'm not an infant because I'm not unarmed. I am armed, Nana. I am armed, as every adult watching this show is armed, with a vote. And it's through voting and democracy that I will use, you know, my political power and will. You don't need to run off to judges, lovely and charming as they are. You don't need to appeal to some sort of dad concept off in the sky. I've got a vote. We've all got a vote. And if we want to do something about this, we should use our political power to do so.
Thank you, Stephen. Right, so I'm going to ask you all then, Stella. So should we have a league table for these, a migrant league table?
No, we shouldn't have a league table because what we know is that first-generation immigrants...
Just a yes or no?
No, we should. Sorry.
Connor, yes or no?
UK is number one in the world for crimes committed by people of foreign extraction. We need it, yes.
Yes. And Stephen, do you wish to give a...
Not for me.
Not for you. I didn't think so. Stephen Barrett, lovely to talk to you. He's a barrister and writer. Connor Tomlinson, political commentator and former Labour aide, Stella. It's not right, is it? I thought I got it then. Listen, thank you so much. Well, if you just tuned in, welcome. I thought I did it, then I didn't, did I? So it's coming up to 31 minutes after 5 o'clock. I'm Nana Akua. We're live on GB News. Coming up, we'll continue with the Great British Debate this hour. And I'm asking, should we have migrant crime league tables? You'll hear the thoughts of my panel, broadcaster and columnist Lee Bundy, also former advisor to Jeremy Corbyn, James Snyder. But first, let's get your latest news.
The top stories this hour, a league table showing the nationalities of migrants with the highest crime rates has been proposed. A group of Tory MPs wants to see the statistics published annually for every offender convicted in England and Wales. They say the rules will help the Home Office impose stricter visa and deportation policies for certain countries. The former Immigration Minister, Robert Jenrick, is behind the plan. Speaking exclusively to GB News, he said the public wants to know how arrivals into the UK are impacting the country.
It is wrong that the government or other agencies hide statistics. I have laid an amendment to the upcoming criminal justice bill, which tackles one of these issues, and it says that the government must publish statistics on crimes and sentences by country of origin and by visa and asylum status.
Now, almost 5,000 migrants have crossed the Channel in small boats so far this year, with Border Force officials taking around 300 people to Dover today after intercepting them. The Home Office says their French counterparts are now facing growing dangers as they attempt to intervene, with police saying they're experiencing growing levels of violence and disruption on the northern shores of France. Following the resignation of Sir Geoffrey Donaldson, the interim DUP leader Gavin Robinson has told colleagues the party isn't about any one individual, saying instead it exists to build a better and stronger Northern Ireland. Sir Geoffrey has been charged with historical sexual offences. The police in Northern Ireland have warned against speculation on social media, which may lead to the identification of any of the victims concerned. It's understood Sir Geoffrey's told DUP officers he strenuously contest the allegations against him. Those are the latest top stories. If you want more, sign up to GB News Alerts. Scan the QR code on the screen right now or go to gbnews.com/alerts.
Thank you, Polly. Coming up, clickbait. I'll be sharing a video which has caught my eye this week. But next, we'll continue with the Great British Debate this hour. And I'm asking, should we have crime migrant league tables?
Join me, Camilla Tominey, every Sunday at 9:30 when I'll be interviewing the key players in British politics and taking them to task.
This report basically says that he's not fit to stand trial.
With an upcoming election looming over Westminster, now is the time for clear, honest answers.
I agree.
And that's precisely what I'll get.
Is he indecisive? Incompetent?
That's the Camilla Tominey Show at 9:30 every Sunday on GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's election channel.
2024, a battleground year.
The year the nation decides.
As the parties gear up their campaigns for the next general election.
Who will be left standing when the British people make one of the biggest decisions of their lives?
Who will rise?
And who will fall?
Let's find out together.
For every moment, the highs, the lows, the twists and turns.
We'll be with you for every step of this journey.
In 2024, GB News is Britain's election channel.
Britain's newsroom. Weekday mornings from 9:30.
It's a remarkable story, isn't it?
Amazing.
Extraordinary. And also, she was unflappable, apparently, the Princess Royal.
She's
just
brilliant.
refused to get out of the car and said, I'm not going anywhere. Extraordinary. Well, Jim Beaton was awarded the George Cross for protecting the princess, and delighted to say joins us now, along with the former head of royalty protection, Di Davis. Jim, you won't remember, but I met you some time ago at the Imperial War Museum when Princess Anne was opening an exhibition to do with the George Cross, and you were there reunited with her. And you told me then what great admiration you had for the princess, cool under fire, but you didn't do so badly yourself.
It was probably my job. And also, I had a wee bit of police training, not very much, but a little bit, whereas Princess Anne had nothing. And yet, the way she displayed it, you would have thought she'd been highly trained to deal with any type of that situation.
Even though you'd had some training, you took 3 bullets for the princess. You effectively stood between her and a deranged gunman.
Well, I was supposed to be a protection officer, really, so I just tried to fuddle about. You must remember that back in 1974, there was no communication, and we were extremely lucky that Michael Hills, who was outside Clarence House and nearby, had got one of the fast police radios, or radios on his shoulder, so he was able to send a message out. Otherwise, we would have just been relying on the good old public to phone in and say there's something happening.
Yeah.
So times have changed drastically.
Good afternoon. If you just tuned in, where have you been? It's near the end of the show. Nana Nicey will be here, though. I'm Nana Akua. We're live on TV, online, and on digital radio. This is GB News. Right, it's time now for the Great British Debate this hour, and I'm asking, should we have a migrant crime league tables? The former Immigration Minister, Robert Jenrick, wants statistics showing the nationalities of migrant groups with the highest crime rates to be published annually. He spoke to Patrick on GB News yesterday.
I think that the public want to know who's coming into our country and what the economic, the fiscal and the societal impact of immigration is.
Wow, is that going to help? Just for goodness sake. If implemented, these new rules could allow the Home Office to have stricter visa checks and deportation policies, although I thought that we were doing that sort of thing anyway. So for the Great British Debate this hour, I'm asking, should we have migrant crime league tables? Well, let's see what my panel make of that. I'm joined by broadcaster and columnist Lizzie Cundy, also former advisor to Jeremy Corbyn, James Schneider. Lizzie Cundy, I'm going to come to you first.
We'll talk about the horse bolting after the barn door closes. Look, look. Tables don't stop boats. Why are we doing this? It's just...
They can if you put them in a row, all on top of each other, and then a line in the sea.
This is just a sticking plaster, time and wasting money. And who's going to pay it? Us, the British taxpayer. I'm sorry, Nana, it's just a waste of time. And how about they do something about stopping the boats that are the problem? We had only, from the highest new record from January to March, I think it's 4,644 migrants crossed. How about they concentrate on that? Tables don't stop boats. This is just ludicrous.
So it's just
I actually think that generally he's flexing his muscles, trying to look important and say something which is actually illogical.
So what it is here's another boat, Italian, is another one, Spanish. Although they probably wouldn't come in.
How about this government? They've got 5 separate policies they've set out, pledges. How about they just do one of them properly before the next election? And I bet they wouldn't be able to do that.
James Schneider.
No, it's a ridiculous gimmick, and if you wanted to change the immigration system, then you should change the immigration system. If you've got concerns with crime, you should change policies to do with crime. It's meant to make him look hard, I suppose, but I mean, it really doesn't make you look hard. Yeah, we're going to release some numbers, and I suppose the idea is what he wants is people to go, oh no, what that will do will demonise some people because the people who are at the top, the honest, law-abiding majority of the people from that nationality will be tarred with that brush, and so on and so forth. But I mean, really, it shows you how they've just completely fallen apart. Rather than being able to do anything about any of the issues, like, oh yeah, I can put down an amendment. He used to be the immigration minister. I mean,
well, he wasn't there for long, was he?
No, but I mean, but this shows. I'm sorry, but he said in his interview, which was great on this, that we had it on this channel, but that Rishi didn't listen to him, and I think that's what we've got to look at. That this Tory party is so divided, and Rishi doesn't listen to his own cabinet, doesn't listen to anyone, doesn't listen to the voice of the British people. He's totally ignorant, and he needs to wave that white handkerchief. The game's up, it's over, and I'm sorry. Happy Easter to the Tories, because it's the last Easter you're going to have in power, and that's no yoke.
Yeah. Very good, Lizzie. Look, I happen to think that Robert Jenner could have been a really effective minister had Rishi Sunak given him the opportunity to flex his muscles and do the things that he wanted to do. But unfortunately, Rishi Sunak doesn't appear to allow anybody or enable anybody. And also, they've got the restriction of the House of Lords and all the other people who want to come out and stop them. I think the real issue is that that's all they've got left that they can do. Write a list of the people coming in and then tick where they're from instead of actually stopping them, because they literally are powerless to do anything else. I think that is a concern. How are the Labour Party going to do anything different?
Well, I don't think the Labour Party will do anything different. The Labour Party's basic policy on almost everything is to stand out to one side, not say they do very much different, because then the Tories can point at them and say, oh, look, they'll do something different to us, and then just point at the Tories and go to the British public, have you seen that bin fire over there? Do you really want 5 more years of that? And that's why they're going to win. But it's not because they're saying, well, we will overhaul the migration system. We will do so in a way that's fair, that's in the interest of the economy, society, that has democratic oversight. It's going to look like this, because that is something that some people will really like and some people won't like. And at the moment, their aim is for people to basically vote them in without noticing. Just be like, we're so exhausted and so fed up with this lot that you get a go by default.
Well, there's no point pointing at the bin, just point at the water.
Exactly. The state of this was supposed to be Great Britain. We can't put our toe in the water. We've got the biggest migration crisis ever. I mean, what's the state of this country?
I literally don't know what to say when I look at this, because it's embarrassing. It's we don't look good to the rest of the world, and they're worried about embarrassing little things like this. Foreign aid. Oh, how will we look to the rest of the world if we stop the foreign aid? You're broke. You're giving money to people in other countries. How do you think that looks?
I know. You can't even let your dog go in the Thames. I mean, this is the state of our country.
James, did you ever think that we would come in here and we'd all be agreeing with you?
No, I didn't. But I'm of course I'm pleased that the day has come, and I hope it happens again. But I think it probably will, because the things that I'm generally speaking arguing for, if you just look at the ideas, you remove who's spoken about them before, you look at the ideas, the majority of people agree with them, because they are basically common sense and they're things that the political mainstream don't talk about anymore.
Why do you think that is, though? Why do you think that they appear to be captured by something else, that they won't listen to the British public? I don't get it.
Because the political spectrum is extremely narrow, and it was open when it was Corbyn versus Johnson. Then the political spectrum was much more open. People had more of a choice what to vote for. Now they're trying to offer the smallest possible choice you can get, so that things that almost everybody disagrees with can carry on. So take water we've been talking about. OK, fine. The Tories say we want to carry on with privatised water because let's spend more bad money after good money. OK, fine. Labour's position, you'd think you're the opposition, it's an open goal, it doesn't cost anything, why don't you go and do it? And instead, there are some leaked emails showing that the privatised water executives were conniving with Labour to come up with a policy that would avoid public ownership. And they're doing that because they don't want to look like Jeremy Corbyn. Well, it's been 5 years. They should stop trying to not look like Jeremy Corbyn and start looking like something that people would actually want and want to vote for.
Isn't it a worry that Labour are most likely going to get in by default because everyone is so disillusioned by the Tory
Well,
party?
listen, this show's nothing without you and your views. Let's welcome our great British voices, their opportunity to be on the show and tell us what they think about the topics we're discussing. I've got full review, let's do it. Then Brian in Solihull. What do you think? Migrant League table, is it up your street? What do you think?
No, it's a diversion, Nana. I'm in agreement with Lizzie, full agreement. I'm James as well too, I think. It's a crude diversion. We've grown accustomed to the smokescreen politics of this Tory government, this failed Tory government, and this is just yet another. This doesn't address anything in terms of. The Prime Minister has said that his stop the boats policy is working, and yet the data says completely the opposite. They've run out of ideas, and Robert Jenrick had a chance as immigration minister to bring this in if that was what he wanted to do then. Of course, he didn't do. So they've run out of ideas, and this is just another. But
it wasn't really his fault, though, let's be honest. Rishi, couldn't really get anything past Rishi. Jonathan Jones, I'm just going to borrow this cup. Jonathan Jones in Cornwall.
No,
he's got the new type mug. He should never be seen on TV. Jonathan.
I'm fully in agreement with the league tables. I'm disagreeing with your panel unusually because I think more transparency is good, and the Danish have done the right thing. We'd want to know where these criminals are coming from, and I think we would be more wise in who we let in if we knew who was committing these crimes. I think it's a jolly good idea.
But Jonathan, you might say that. But once they're in, they're in. Even if we know where they're from and they're criminals, we don't do anything with them.
On the ones that have already come in, Nana?
Yeah.
They're committing the crimes, aren't they?
Well, some of them, not all of them. But I hear you, David, in Watford.
What I love about the current politicians of all things, they're pandering to the lowest possible denominator. If they do have this table, great. They can't stop the people coming in the first place. So what are they going to do? Wave a bit of paper and say, out? Or is it going to pander to the vile far right who will start lynch mobbing anyone that they think is guilty? This is stupid. And I couldn't vote for any government who have this as a policy. It's wrong in the 21st century that we start pandering to this stupid minority.
Yeah, it does seem a bit silly. Jackie in St Albans.
Hi, yes, I think that whilst it's an unpalatable truth and it is an interesting idea, they can't seem to get very far forward with any of the other ideas they've had. And I agree with Lizzie and James, we're wasting money. We need to actually tackle the problem at source, which there doesn't seem to be the appetite or the wherewithal to do it. I mean, I had to look at some statistics. The EU in January 23 had 27.3 million non-EU migrants now. And I think that we need to actually vet everybody more stringently. We need to be much...
Jackie, I'm going to have to cut that slightly short because your audio is a bit dodgy. It's got a bit wavy. But thank you so much for your thoughts. Thank you to David Barham in Watford, Jonathan Jones in Cornwall, Brian Dugan in Solihull, and Jackie Sampson in St Albans. Thank you. Great to hear your voices. Next, it's my quick fire quiz. Don't go anywhere.
Hello there, welcome to your latest GB News weather forecast from the Met Office. As we go through the rest of this Easter weekend, we will see some further sunshine, but there is still some rain in the forecast, all courtesy of areas of low pressure which are going to hang around across the British Isles as we go through the coming days. So as we end Saturday, for many actually, we will see clearing skies, but there will be some heavy showers still down towards the southwest of England, and they will spread their way towards southwest Wales and eventually into Northern Ireland towards the end of the night. And at the same time, some misty low cloud will just begin to spill in from the North Sea. But where we do see the clearest of the skies, we will see a touch of frost as we start Easter Day. But we will see plenty of sunshine first thing across many central parts. But this misty low cloud will spill its way further westwards as we go through the course of the day. So come the afternoon, Many parts of England and Wales will see plenty of cloud, a few spits and spots of rain. So the best of the brightness will be across Scotland and Northern Ireland, but here we'll continue the risk of a few showers. Temperature-wise, in the sunshine, reaching around 14 or 15 degrees. And then looking ahead to Easter Monday, a rather wet picture for many parts of England and Wales, some heavy rain in places. Scotland and Northern Ireland drier with some brightness here, but certainly under that rain, not feeling too great. And unfortunately, the unsettled conditions do look like they will continue as we head towards the middle of the week.
Big news, big debates, big opinion. Patrick Christie's Tonight is the week's biggest show. Every weekday, 9 to 11 p.m, we've got the inside track on the day's top stories. There'll be sharp takes you won't get anywhere else. We will set the news agenda, not just follow it, and I want to bring you along for the ride. Whatever it is, we'll have our finger on the pulse. It's news, but it's this close to entertainment. Patrick Christie's Tonight, 9 to 11 p.m, only on GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
I'm Christopher Hope.
And I'm Gloria Di Piero, bringing you
PMQ's live here on GB News.
Whenever Parliament is in session on a Wednesday at midday, we'll bring you live coverage of Prime Minister's questions. We'll be asking our viewers and listeners to submit the questions that they would like to put to the Prime Minister, and we'll put that to our panel of top politicians in our Westminster studio.
That's PMQ's live here on GB News, Britain's election channel.
I think the most exciting bit for me is talking to people.
People who I think are ignored often by the major news channels. We're going to give news they want to hear. There's a voice there that needs to be heard. I think there's a chance here for a diversity of opinion to be expressed, which you don't find elsewhere. It's really exciting.
We don't hold back. We're free to say how decisions that are taken here
affect us all around the country. Only on GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
Good afternoon, this is GB News. We are the People's Channel. I'm Nana Akua. It's just coming up to 51 minutes after 5 o'clock. It's time for my quick fire quiz, the part of the show where I test my panel on some of the other topics hitting the headlines right now. Joining me, former advisor to Jeremy Corbyn, James Schneider. Your buzzer, please, James. And broadcaster and columnist Lizzie Cundy. Your buzzer, please. Right, and please play along at home. Question 1. Which city in the country put up a Ramadan light display? Was it A, Birmingham, B, London, or C, Manchester? That's difficult to say. Lizzie Cundy.
B, London.
Was it Lizzie? Yeah. Or was it London? The answer is B, it was London. Very good. Well done, Lizzie. Very good. All right, question 2. Closest answer wins. Oh, look over there. Oh. According to a new survey, what percentage of people were satisfied with the NHS? James.
21.
Lizzie Cundy.
25.
21, 25. The answer is 25. Oh. Lizzie Cundy, spot on the nose. Wow. She never does that. Right, question 3. Question 3. Which former Secretary of State claimed she was sexy at 66? Come on, 66. Oh.
I've got... so they are 66 now?
Yeah, and she's sexy at 66. Press your buzzer, say something. Come on. Just press your buzzer. Yes.
Go on.
Amber Rudd, but she's not 66.
No, she isn't, so that's totally wrong.
I don't know. I really
My
don't.
God. I'll give you a clue, and then the one who gets it. She writes books.
But she's not 66. Are we...
Oh, no, Noreen Doris.
Did you...
Nadine Dorries.
I'm going to have to take that answer from James. You said the answer.
Didn't press the buzzer.
It was indeed Nadine Dorries who said...
That's not fair.
She did. Well, you know, sometimes life isn't fair. True or false? The floating piece of wood that kept Kate Winslet's Rose alive in the Titanic was sold for £200,000. Oh, I'll go for you, James.
True.
It's true.
It is true.
Is it true? Let's see. The answer is... The answer is...
The answer equals nothing.
The answer is...
It's got to be true. We'll give it as true.
I don't know. I didn't know whether it's true or false.
Yes.
It's false, actually. It's totally false. You're both completely wrong. Listen, it's £500,000. Listen.
What? £500,000?
Oh, yeah,
for a floating piece of wood?
Listen, that's
the world's gone mad.
No, but at least, listen, if you were in the Thames now, you'd be paying that to stay afloat, mate. The answer is 569,739,000. So the answer is false. It was false, yes. So why didn't one of you say false? What's wrong with you? Don't ever do that again. No. When it's 50-50, everyone knows that. Right, and I think this is your final question. The CEO of Wetherspoons, Tim Marston, suggested that AI could do which of the following pub jobs? Was it A, pour pints, B, identify underage drinkers, or C, see who had too many? It was tricky. I think it was Lizzie Cundy. B. What did you think? B would identify underage drinkers. What do you think?
That's what I was going to say, but I can't say the same one, so C.
You're going to say C, let you know if you've had too many. The answer is A.
How is AI going to pour pints?
A robot is AI, a robotic pint pourer.
Can I say Wetherspoons my favourite pub? It's the only pub.
Well, it should keep people behind the bar. It's nice to say hello to someone. You want a robot drink?
I'm quite happy with a robot as long as they play some music in those pubs, for God's sake. Well, listen, on today's show, I've been asking, is it time to nationalise water? According to our Twitter poll, 80.4% of you said yes. See, sensible public. 19.6% of you say no. I also asked, should we have migrant crime league tables? 93.1% of you said yes, only 6.9% of you said no. Wow, I'd have gone the other way. Thank you so much to my panel, broadcaster and columnist Lizzie Cundy. Lizzie Cundy, thank you so much. And also to former advisor Jeremy Corbyn, James Schneider, for joining me today. Thank you so much, James.
Thank you.
And a huge thank you to you at home for your company. I'll be back tomorrow, same time, same place. I'll see you there. The Saturday 5 is up next, and at 9, it's Mark Dolan Tonight.
Looks like things are heating up. Boxed boilers, sponsors of weather on GB News.
Hello there, welcome to your latest GB News weather forecast from the Met Office. As we go through the rest of this Easter weekend, we will see some further sunshine, but there is still some rain in the forecast, all courtesy of areas of low pressure which are going to hang around across the British Isles as we go through the coming days. So as we end Saturday, for many actually, we will see clearing skies, but there will be some heavy showers still down towards the southwest of England, and they will spread their way towards southwest Wales and eventually into Northern Ireland towards the end of the night. And at the same time, some misty low cloud will just begin to spill in from the North Sea. But where we do see the clearest of the skies, we will see a touch of frost as we start Easter Day. But we will see plenty of sunshine first thing across many central parts. But this misty low cloud will spill its way further westwards as we go through the course of the day. So come the afternoon, many parts of England and Wales will see plenty of cloud, a few spits and spots of rain. So the best of the brightness will be across Scotland and Northern Ireland, but here we'll continue the risk of a few showers. Temperature-wise, in the sunshine, reaching around 14 or 15 degrees. And then looking ahead to Easter Monday, a rather wet picture for many parts of England and Wales, some heavy rain in places. Scotland and Northern Ireland drier with some brightness here, but certainly under that rain, not feeling too great. And unfortunately, the unsettled conditions do look like they will continue as we head towards the middle of the week.
That warm feeling inside from Boxed Boilers, sponsors of weather on GB News.
Join me, Camilla Tominey, every Sunday at 9:30 when I'll be interviewing the key players in British politics and taking them to task.
This report basically says that he's not fit to stand trial.
With an upcoming election looming over Westminster, now is the time for clear, honest answers.
I agree.
And that's precisely what I'll get.
Is he indecisive? Incompetent?
That's the Camilla Tominey Show at 9:30 every Sunday on GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's election channel.
2024, a battleground year.
The year the nation decides.
As the parties gear up their campaigns for the next general election.
Who will be left standing when the British people make one of the biggest decisions of their lives?
Who will rise?
And who will fall?
Let's find out together.
For every moment, the highs, the lows, the twists and turns.
We'll be with you for every step of this journey.
In 2024, GB News is Britain's election channel.